be normal and mentally sound in their day-to-day lives immediately becomes a deranged psychotic when alone at home.
We observed hundreds of subjects with successful careers, numerous friends, and loving families. Perfectly normal. But as soon as they were at their homes by themselves, they began presenting behavior consistent with those suffering from dementia, schizophrenia, and various other acute mental illnesses.
Researchers illustrated the study's findings with footage of 29-year-old test subject Brian Temple, who, despite having a steady job and maintaining an ordinary social life, exhibited increasingly erratic and unstable activity from the moment he was alone in his apartment, including dancing in his kitchen to no music whatsoever, making grotesque faces in the mirror for extended periods of time, and seemingly having conversations with no one in particular.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. You can call in with whatever is on your mind. You can change the subject or tell us what you think about what we're saying. It doesn't matter, whatever you want to tell people on the terrestrial airwaves. It's Free Talk Live, so you can bring up whatever you want. And with you on the show tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay Noon.
Mushmouth Mike.
And
I was trying to figure out who I wanted to be tonight.
Yeah, and it's nice to have you back after a while.
Thank
I've
you.
never done a show with Mushmouth Mike before.
Well,
but
here we go.
Tonight we are talking about this story brought in from Bitcoin Magazine. It says that volcano Bitcoin mining, and that means, yes, a real volcano is mining Bitcoin in El Salvador. It gave them $29,000 boost.
$29 million.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's
I just read it
current
wrong.
valuation of the Bitcoin per war notes.
That they've been mining over several years. I think I saw that. But I'm going to go to the phones because we already have a caller.
Nice.
Caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Goblins.
Goblins? What about them?
They're green and mean.
Mm-hmm.
Mean green goblins.
Yep. Well, we also have a story tonight about the Pope is going to be having a conference about supernatural creatures.
Talk about some goblins.
Yeah, maybe we'll talk about goblins then. Thank you for the call, caller. They're mean and green.
Randoms.
That's what he wanted to say on,
okay,
terrestrial radio, whatever was I said.
Maybe they get nervous.
So did you want me to bring this or read the story, or you could? It doesn't
We
matter
can
to
keep
me.
talking about it, and I'll find the article. Yeah,
Okay.
So the big number that really sounds good is not the dollar amount.
I agree.
But it's the sats. So 424 Bitcoin, I think it was. What that's
474.
How many millions of Satoshis is that?
Oh,
That's
how
a
many
lot.
Satoshis is in a Bitcoin?
It's
A
100
million.
million.
A
100
million in
million
a-
per.
100 million in a Bitcoin?
Yes.
I never really thought about that.
Yeah, so 100 million Satoshis times what, 424 million Satoshis?
It's 474.
Oh, that's in the billion. 474. That's a lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Might need a chalkboard to get it right.
And it's currently valued at $29 million in dollars.
That's
which
pretty good.
It is important to always point that out. I remember you used to, you like to talk about things in terms of what it costs in Bitcoin instead of in dollars. Most
It's
people,
hard to do because everybody's still very comfortable with the dollar, and
Yeah.
it is a system that when it was designed, even now it still works, right? It's just been kind of eroded from us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just listening to a thing today. A guy was talking about driving across Argentina and trying to use gold, silver, or Bitcoin. And he said it was like almost impossible to use Bitcoin in Argentina. But what he was able to do, and he had to take like a 50% beating on the gold. He had 1/10 ounce gold, and nobody wanted to touch it because it's like too valuable.
Okay.
But silver, he was able to get spot for in trading, driving across Argentina. And he was saying the only way he could really use cryptocurrency was to convert his Bitcoin into Tether, because there was a guy that would take Tether. But the most desirable thing that everybody wanted was $100 U.S. bills in Argentina.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's what he was
Probably
saying.
fetched a nice premium for those.
They were worth more.
Well, it was like the most desirable thing because it was the best way to, sort of,
Maybe the hardest to counterfeit, too.
store wealth. Yeah, I guess it didn't really talk about counterfeiting, but it was the easiest. It was the best way to trade, and pretty much because most of the economy is sort of like black market or underground. He was saying
Counter market,
right? And the U.S. dollar seemed to be like the most desired thing there, and he was kind of disappointed. He was also, I forget the guy's name. He was also talking about how he went to St. Martin, and he's like, "Hey, everybody says they'll take Bitcoin Cash anywhere in St. Martin." He goes, "Nope, couldn't find anywhere to spend Bitcoin Cash."
What the heck?
Yeah.
Why would that be? I heard about it just like 2 years ago.
Yep.
It was like
a lot of that
stopped?
stuff requires infrastructure. Like when Ian did it here, that was a lot of work. He was constantly updating tablets for people, and things wouldn't work. And like he was Johnny on the spot with it.
AnyPay also just doesn't work anymore.
Right.
I've noticed that it was really hard to spend Bitcoin in Acapulco. But I was able to trade in 1/10 ounce silver and some gold backs, and the only crypto I was really able to spend was like buying merch at Anarchapulco or buying merchandise from Gustav, who was one of the kids there, selling at Anarchapulco. But they really wanted the pesos.
The infrastructure to accept it has changed a lot, and it's a lot easier. Most of this is hearsay. I've seen it, but I've never actually done it. But I was recently working with a kind of a Linux-based operating system that's designed for everybody called Start9, where you could just click on things and have a full node to run Bitcoin, or maybe even BTC Pay server, which would allow you to set up like your own little web shop and run from the business and accept Bitcoin payments like through Lightning.
So it's
or
like
whatnot.
AnyPay, but
similar,
wow.
but with a lot more support on the back end.
Wow.
And it's very well established.
I've never heard of it.
I'm going to be setting one up, so I'll definitely let you know how to do it. But that's a lot of the issues that you're talking about is not able to use it. So it's like trying to use on-chain Bitcoin for, $10 worth of stuff. In some places ain't going to work too well, depending on what the fees are. So, you have to go to Lightning. Or you can try to use other cryptos, but really if you just pick the one that's the most popular, love it or leave it, that's the best way to go.
What did you call that one? The payment protocol?
It's a BTC Pay server.
Pay server, and it's only Lightning?
No, I think you could definitely do on-chain with it, but it has Lightning built into it, if you will.
Which might be better right now.
It's easy to plug into Lightning. And it's open source too, and people have built like Monero connections for it also. But
oh wow!
Ideally, it's built and supported by Bitcoiners, so don't be surprised if it doesn't work with other things.
That was the other thing that I noticed down in Acapulco. It was like, hey, can I trade anybody some BTC or BCH for pesos, Mexican pesos, and everybody's like, well, if you got Monero, nobody wanted Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Dash. Everybody just wanted Monero, and the only way you were doing things is Monero. And one thing that was cool is I brought like a bunch of little silver and some gold backs with me to trade, and I was able to sell a bunch of those and stack up some Monero while I was down there.
What little time I spent in down south, like in Honduras, they definitely know the precious metals. So gold and silver. I didn't actually trade in that. I guess I just say that based on the things I saw being sold and the jewelry that sometimes the people would adorn.
I was asking a Free Stater that we both know, we all know, but I don't know if I should say his name. What his experiences were like in Argentina, and all he was telling me about was the Christianity scene. Like, oh yeah, there's this woman that needed a Bible because she was going through some stuff, and so I was going to look for a Bible for her. I was like, I want to know about way more important stuff than that, but if I was going to Argentina.
I mean, if it keeps people on the straight and narrow, it takes all different sorts of things to provide that, sort of guidance. And I guess to be Christ-like wouldn't be too bad as long as they're not like trying to impose it on us at the end of the sword.
No, I really don't have much wrong with like people being Christian. It's just that I was like, you went to Argentina and all you're telling me about is this journey of going to find a Bible at a Catholic church and you couldn't find the right translation. And I would be more interested in like what is like prices like, what are prices like down there, what are people like, what do they think about Malay and stuff like that.
Well, at least you know that maybe you can help them find some Bibles. Take some with you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that'd be my mission, but that was like a weird thing. I thought that it'd be really easy to find a Bible in a Catholic church, and he was like, you would think that they would just have Bibles, and they would like give you one to give somebody who's like a homeless woman who needs a Bible.
They have special Bibles for the Catholic Church?
They do have like some
a
extra
regular
books.
King James or something?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
They also have extra books. I know because my mom is like, they have satanic extra books like the Mormons, but that's because my mom is like a specific kind. So the Catholics probably think that her kind is wrong, you know, whatever. Mormons think they're both wrong.
All these different variations of Christ worshippers.
And it's so funny because something that Mark says a lot that I don't know how I never thought of it before. It's so obvious. Is one thing that's so weird is the fact that Jesus never wrote anything himself, as far as we know. I bet if he did, and it's like hidden by some, you know, kings throughout the ages, only like the elite get to read
Suppression of information?
That would be really interesting to read. And I
wouldn't doubt it.
Really interested to read that, but it's just like the stuff that just seems like some random stories isn't as interesting. But I mean,
apparently there's a volcano in El Salvador that if you feed all these people to it, they'll come out as Bitcoin.
And then the sun will come back.
This volcano. So are they using like heat transfer fluid from the volcano to like heat water and turn steam generators?
It does not get into the specifics.
I think it's something
it says
like
geothermal energy, so that could kind of be the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah, that is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So basically, they're heating water to create steam, to push steam turbines.
That would make sense.
To make electricity. Yep.
And they're probably, if we were going to theorize on how they're doing it, they're probably also running air conditioners because Bitcoin. I don't know. They have to be immersed. Yeah, because otherwise they would spend a lot of time and effort air conditioning these things.
Well,
I'm sure it's hot near a volcano.
I
would think
you can send the electricity a mile away from the volcano pretty easy.
Okay. Yeah, it's not like right up next to it. That's, of course, that makes sense.
And, you know, the geothermal of the electricity, you know, of producing electricity is, you know, it's got to be hot enough to turn that water into steam, get it to 212 degrees at, you know, well, actually, they probably don't even have to get it to 212 degrees because it's probably at a high elevation, seeing how it's a volcano. And, you know, the higher you go up in altitude, the less temperature you need to boil water. The idea is to make steam under pressure to turn a turbine, and then they have then, you know, you can make so much electricity, you know, off these steam turbines that it's probably not a real big deal to cool them down. But if there was like a river or something or some water to, you know, do some, you know, hydraulic cooling.
I think they have rainforest down there too, right?
Well, you want to have a good supply of actual water to, you know, cool down all your miners, but they would have no problem running the air conditioners. You know, it's a thing you gotta work into it. And now El Salvador's hot, right? Just in general.
Further down on the equator.
I would think it might.
What's the elevation of this mountain? Because if you're at like 9,000 foot, it's not that hot.
Right.
You know, there's places in Peru where it snows.
This says that the water temperature only goes down by like 7,500 feet. It'll go down by 1 degree. So. Oh, wait. It's with every 500 feet elevation above a certain point. I'm just trying to read something really fast. So it says at 7,500 feet, water boils at 198 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yep.
So it's just like 1 degree. I don't know. Probably makes a difference when you're like.
So when you're in Colorado, where I was living for a few years, the elevation at my stepfather's house is like 6,100 foot. And the water would definitely start boiling well before 200 degrees. Like, I could never get the water over 200 degrees. So like when you cook pasta or something, you have to cook it longer than at sea level because the water's so much hotter at sea level, before it boils.
So you think they're extracting the heat, boiling water, sending that through turbines, which are then turning generators or something to that aspect that then power other things like
Bitcoin miners.
My question is just, a volcano, does it just sit there with a bunch of lava in it for like as many years as
till it goes boom?
I don't know, like
a volcano would be like a pressure release valve to an extent, right? Like nature's
it's just hot magma coming out of the earth. And so a lot of these volcanoes you can totally access, like the magma pools. You know, they have sort of a consistent, from what I understand, you know, magma flow or rate.
Maybe that's what this is,
and
like
then
consistently
Yeah, and
blowing
then
out.
every once in a while they'll probably go crazy and destroy all the infrastructure right there. And
Yeah, I'm sure they've obviously found some way to harness that energy in a consistent manner. That close to it, I would imagine.
And they're also building like Bitcoin City around it. So
Yeah, definitely that's a big push in El Salvador. I mean, according to that article too, it says that they've amassed so far 5,750 Bitcoin. Right, that's a lot.
oh, so all of the El Salvador's holdings right now.
Yes, they actually created a website where you could track that. So they're the only country in the world, I believe, that are openly saying this is what we're doing. And best I can tell, they are, they already are a Bitcoin friendly state, if there is such a thing.
That makes a lot of sense because, or not makes a lot of sense, but it's a good point because I know that like it seems like the U.S. is amassing Bitcoin, but you don't have that number just on a website somewhere.
No, they're stealing it.
Yeah, they're arresting people and stealing Bitcoin left and right recently. So they're probably have more than 500 or 5,750.
I mean, El
BC.
Salvador is still a state, right? I mean, they still literally went around and just locked up all the people they said were bad.
Yeah, they suspended
still in
like
prison.
their habeas corpus and arrested 70,000 people like almost without filter. That was like, oh, well, obviously we're arresting this person, Bonnie. He had a gang tattoo. Well, even just like joining a gang isn't a crime. Like you could join a gang and I've never heard
I guess
anyone.
I would be in a gang.
Just don't go to El Salvador.
No, I wouldn't try that. But
from what I understand about El Salvador, it was like, well, according to the media, that it was very, very, very violent.
Sure.
Pretty much everywhere was like, Compton, the hood of LA at its worst time in pretty much all the population areas.
Yeah, but blowback is just going to make it worse soon.
Sure.
Well,
And
If
at some
you go
point, yes, I wonder
and
about
piss
that.
people off who, I've never done anything wrong in my life,
Yep.
and you put me in the most crowded, disgusting prison in the world, and with all these actual thugs, like it's just going to, I think, cause blowback.
The videos that I've seen from that, like, they all look pretty hard. I
Yeah.
mean, judging a book by its cover, these definitely look like a hard bunch of individuals. And I can tell by the way they're running that prison, then they don't F around in there.
I feel like they show like the most obvious, like they've already vetted and these are actual criminals, but they rounded up 70,000 people. Like I haven't seen 70,000 people in the videos and analyzed each one. I
That
know
might
that they
just
were
be
like,
the prison that they like to show off.
yeah, that could be like where they actually have people where they're like, oh, we got this one. We know he's a criminal.
Maybe they could put these guys on a wheel like they used to do the
Hamsters.
Yeah, hamsters or horses, like on a grist mill, and then they could mine
yeah.
Bitcoin with that.
Yep, they call it a horsepower when a horse walks around, and they
That makes a lot of sense.
like
Never
four.
thought about that.
They got
I mean,
these
I wouldn't
things
want to do that.
where it's like four of these, basically poles come out, and you put a team of horses in front of each pole, so you have 8 horses. And
Are they just pushing with like their
Yeah.
horse chests?
yeah, basically they have a harness, and they're hooked up to the front and the back,
The
so they're
yoke?
pulling it just like they would pull a wagon. So they pull these poles, and then this thing spins around, and they just walk. This thing spins around, and it has a PTO power takeoff that comes out of. I've seen these set up at farm shows before. Erie Canal Days in Remsen, New York. I think up by Rome, New York, actually, is where this was. And it's like old time farming, and they hooked one of these things up to a PTO dyno, which measures like the power takeoff horsepower of a tractor. And like 8 horses were able to make this thing do something like 1,200 horsepower at 1,000 RPM, which is super impressive. They were 8 large horses.
What is
they were
that
big.
in terms of like a truck?
Like your car that you drive is probably 95 horsepower, 85 horsepower.
Whoa.
A semi truck that hauls 80,000 pounds gross vehicle weight, they're anywhere from 350 to 600 horsepower.
Whoa.
But anyways, the horse is just walking around in a circle, and then there's this drive shaft that's like 8 inches off the ground, and the horses all step over it, and none of them whacked it. And the thing's piece of steel about 3 inches in diameter that's spinning. And
How does that happen?
so you could sort of do this with people. Davi Barker in one of his books, Survivor Max. I don't know if you ever heard of this. So Davi Barker wrote books about the zombie apocalypse.
Who is that, Davi Barker?
He was up here in New Hampshire for a while. He kind of sort of went for the whole vaccine, wear a mask, woke thing after, right around 2020. But he was really big into the Bitcoin not bombs thing, was like his promotional
okay.
thing.
I think that's why I've heard of him.
He's an artist. He's an author, but he wrote these books, this series of books called Survivor Max, and basically the book was about a bunch of free staters. So, like in this book, Jack Edgington is kind of the star of the book, and he's being raised by Ian Freeman because Mark Edge got eaten by zombies in the book. But anyways, in his so and I don't know if it was the second or third book that he did. And these books are like 10 years old now.
Looks like SurvivorMax.com is still online too, and you can buy these wonderful books Jay's talking about.
Yeah. And so
Ian didn't tell me he was a character in a book.
They used to be they were advertisers on them for a bit too, I think.
So anyways, one of his things in one of his books is a zombie powered carnival. So this guy would capture the zombies, and he had them basically like pushing like this horsepower type thing I was talking about. And it was a zombie powered carnival that these guys would, so the zombies would keep, you'd hang some brains in front of them, I guess, and they would just keep walking forward, and they would push the, push the door in front of them, keep on walking around in the circle, kind of like a rotating door, like when you go to a big fancy hotel or something. And
that's scary.
And that's how the carnival was powered.
That sounds
was
kind
by
of
the
like
zombies.
going to Walmart now. It's like a zombie powered carnival with everybody walking around.
That's really creative though.
Foot dragging and all.
So speaking of states taking Bitcoin, I did see a thing the other day, and I just looked it up to make sure I got it right. But Wisconsin is has officially become the first state to buy Bitcoin, according to the new filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. And while $98 million isn't considered a lot of money for a state pension fund, it's a notable move given how notoriously volatile cryptocurrency can be. But basically, they put
it into their pension fund.
But they bought shares of BlackRock's iShare Bitcoin Trust worth about $98 million and $63 million of Grayscale spot Bitcoin ETF. Now, you hear me talk about pensions and how like the most dangerous pension systems are these government pension systems because they're run by a bunch of basically rookies and thieves.
Especially that one.
Yeah. So like anyone, why would you buy a certificate saying that you have Bitcoin when you can actually hold the Bitcoin?
Yeah. So that's paper Bitcoin too.
Right. That's paper Bitcoin, these ETFs. So it goes to show me. So they didn't actually buy Bitcoin. They bought an ETF. So first off, it's wrong. They bought a piece of paper. Yeah. It's like, oh, I just bought $1 million worth of silver. I'm like, oh, so where you got that? You need a couple of good size, gun safes to put that in. Oh, well, I got this, certificate that was emailed to me. And, I bought SVL on the NASDAQ. No, that's not silver, buddy. That's paper.
That's they're doing those sort of advertisements on purpose. That's purposely misleading. Because Bitcoin is like one of those assets where you don't need a broker to hold it.
Right.
Yeah, I think that they do purposely do stuff like that. Like they would write that headline and it's misleading about what Bitcoin is really like because it's so much more simple than people think. And I think
simpler by the day.
Even like some like Bitcoiners talk about it in too complicated of terms when it's just like, okay, the average like woman is just going to think like, I can't figure this out. And I am a woman, so I can say that. It's just going to be like, oh, well, that's something that like boys are into. I hate when women say that. It's like, no, it's not a boy thing. Is a bank account a boy thing? You don't need to know how the bank account works behind the scenes to use your bank account. And it's simpler than that, I would say.
Could definitely use more women in Bitcoin.
603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Don't go anywhere. You can call in with whatever is on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. More about the volcano mining in El Salvador coming up.
No, it's not your imagination. I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Same cost, smaller package. How rampant is this now? Merriam-Webster's dictionary has added the word shrinkflation. Official definition, the practice of reducing a product's amount or volume per unit while continuing to offer it at the same price. That cereal box is thinner. Fewer chips, more air in that bag. Fewer pills in the bottle. Shop smart for brands you want the way you shop around for the cheapest gasoline. Price per gallon is posted right there on the sign, and you'll find unit price, possibly in smaller print, right next to the item price in the supermarket. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks on the blog at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. The former president's team are trying to portray Cohen as an untrustworthy ex-employee out for revenge. Ever since Sally Patterson sent this report from outside the court in New York.
Donald Trump sat smirking as he watched his attorneys grill his former fixer. The defense is working hard to paint Michael Cohen as a vindictive ex-employee who can't be trusted. On Thursday, the court was played audio from last year, where Cohen can be heard saying, "I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. I want this man to rot inside for what he did to my family." The former president is charged with 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records in relation to a hush money payment allegedly made ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. And speaking to reporters outside court, he once again called the trial a scam and a sham designed to keep him off the campaign trail. Sally Patterson, New York.
Meanwhile, US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies. He hosted a group of 20 oil executives and lobbyists last month and is expected to provide tax breaks to the industry if he becomes president again. Ever since Caroline Malone reports.
The deal in question involves Trump returning incentives for the oil and gas industry, worth about $110 billion. President Joe Biden wants tax breaks on them eliminated, including $35 billion in domestic subsidies and $75 billion in foreign fossil fuel income. Trump hosted a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort last month featuring the who's who of the oil and gas industry. Congressional Democrats have launched an investigation into ethical campaign finance and legal issues. Some say this is a quid pro quo offer.
US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur over his handling of classified documents. Hur questioned the president's memory and mental agility in a damning report earlier this year. Biden has already hit back at Hur's characterization of him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The US military has finished building a large floating pier off the coast of Gaza. It's in an attempt to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance for Palestinians in the war-torn Gaza Strip. Ever since Benji Hire reports.
It's an enormous but desperately needed task, one that could help tackle hunger in the territory amid Israel's devastating campaign against Hamas. The United Nations warns of a full-blown famine. Children, it says, are starving to death. Once the US's system is up and running, close to 150 trucks of aid could be delivered per day, carrying 2 million meals, enough to feed almost all of the Gazan population.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash with bitrefill.com, where you can buy gift cards from big retailers including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month for this sponsorship. It's easy to get and use Dash. You can learn more at dash.org. That's dash.org. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay Noon.
Mushmouth Mike.
And you can call that number 603-283-6160 to bring up whatever's on your mind. Right now, we're talking about El Salvador mining Bitcoin with their volcano to the tune of 474 Bitcoins so far.
Added to their stockpile of 5,700 Bitcoin.
Yep.
Which is good in my mind because you've got a state, which is not a great entity, but it's a collection of mind disease. Anyways, they're using hard money. or at least as hard to money as Bitcoin can be, because you can't touch it and all. So, but it's a good idea,
and they're doing way better than these, American, pension system that's just buying an ETF. And I really believe
in Nebraska that was
Wisconsin.
Oh,
so these ETFs come on, and the price of Bitcoin every time right before they start, I hear about all this news and these Bitcoin ETFs, being approved or whatever. Or Bitcoin starts climbing up and up and up, and then a whole bunch of people buy these ETFs, and Bitcoin price crashes. And that's basically what happened sort of last time Bitcoin went up into the 60s a couple years ago, from what I understand.
I'm not the ETF expert, but I do think actual BTC get moved or bought, sold, reconciled. I don't know what the technical word for it is. When there are market moves with these ETF contract creators or whatever you call them.
Yeah, and I'm going to say ETF is very dangerous, very much a scam. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a dirt farmer. But
it's electronically traded fund, right?
Right.
It's a fugazi.
Right. So if you for some reason just really wanted to buy crude oil, for example, and you had $250,000 to do something with, and you think crude oil is a good thing to get into, or natural gas, well, you're not going to ever take delivery of crude oil or natural gas. And from what I understand, these ETFs at some point expire, and then you get paid out or something. Or I don't really know how it works, but the idea is you're not going to buy $250,000 of pork bellies or crude oil and put it in your garage or in your closet or something. But Bitcoin is one of the things that you can hold for a wallet that is free. There's different ways you could hold it, but there's very secure ways, such as a wallet where you have the private
freedom money
keys. And you can actually hold Bitcoin. So I see no purpose whatsoever, unless you're scamming people, like scamming the people of Wisconsin who are forced to prop up this pension fund probably, to buy a Bitcoin ETF. Because it only just makes a bunch of greasy, slimy scumbags wearing suits and ties money.
It's kind of funny because it might just be that they got scammed because they're too stupid, because most state employees are actually pretty dumb.
Yeah, because the most incompetent financial guys are going to be the ones working in the state. Just like the most incompetent, lazy lawyers are always the ones working in these prosecutor offices. Because if they could hack it in the real world as a lawyer, they wouldn't work. They wouldn't be a prosecutor. They'd be working in a private law firm.
It's much easier to win when you have unlimited resources of the state on your side. Being
you don't have to be any good.
I mean, the fact that we're talking about two states, Wisconsin and El Salvador, that are even positively using or talking about Bitcoin is a plus. So maybe, with any luck, we're moving more away from the fight stage into the join us stage. I think we got a long way to go, but I mean, there
are a lot of people getting put in jail right now.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. That's why we're all here, right? Because otherwise Ian would be on the show right now. So let's not forget him. Which we don't, of course. But, I wouldn't know about Bitcoin if it weren't for Free Talk Live, I don't think. And a lot of other people
neither would
probably say the same thing.
Well, do you think you would have by now, or you just wouldn't have as early?
Surely would have by now. Whether or not they were the first thing, I don't know, but I certainly began to hear about it a lot. And then sort of went down my own rabbit hole.
And I also had heard of Bitcoin before I listened to Free Talk Live, but I didn't think much of it at all. It sounded absolutely oh, that's something I could never understand, and it's all complicated. And besides Peter, what's his name? Peter, the one that is all into gold.
Peter Schiff.
Peter Schiff said it's a bubble, so I should stay away from it. And Peter Schiff is smart, so.
Yeah, he's an old hard money guy, so I mean, I can get where this newfangled thing you can't touch, eat, smell, build a house out of would be the odd.
So if you start looking back at Bitcoin versus silver, Bitcoin's been crushing silver like crazy since Bitcoin's existed. And I think Bitcoin sort of took a lot of that precious metals investor market or speculator market. And Bitcoin's just the fact that because I don't have a bank account, I don't have a social security number, I don't have credit cards, any of that stuff. I can't buy anything on Amazon until there was purse.io, for example, which doesn't exist anymore. But now, and when I buy things on Amazon, you either take cash and go buy an Amazon gift card, or I can use, cryptocurrency, and there's a whole bunch of different websites where you can, turn it into an Amazon gift card, for example.
Yep, you can do that on Bitrefill right now. RIP Purse, that was awesome. It would give you discount too. You could like set as much discount as you want.
Yep.
If someone would buy it, then
2014, 2015, I bought a lot of tools with Bitcoin through Purse, and I got a lot of things for 50% off.
But I wonder how much, like, I would always think, like, am I actually losing money in the long run? Like, if Bitcoin goes to $1 million, I'm
If you're
obviously
trading your Bitcoin
losing.
away, yeah, you're always losing.
Yeah.
I mean, but the fact, you can hold forever, but the fact that you can still use it is really important.
And also just the fact of, like, the convenience of not having to, like, take the Bitcoin and turn it into dollars. That usually takes more effort.
And that was the only way I could access Amazon. In fact, I haven't looked at Overstock.com in a long time, but I used to buy a lot of stuff on Overstock.com, when they started taking Bitcoin also.
I haven't looked at it either. I mean, we can look
me
and see if they still, I mean, there's no way Patrick Byrne, well, I guess they could all change, right? Is it owned by shareholders?
I have no idea.
Okay. Well, they started accepting it. I can't imagine they would have stopped, especially if they held any of that Bitcoin.
Well,
Overstock.com was my very first online purchase I ever made.
That's the first
And
I
I was
remember of hearing, and then I think Newegg started not too long after that.
Okay, yeah, I heard about that. I never bought anything from them guys. But I was like 34 years old when I made my first online purchase.
1 year ago, people on Reddit are saying, looks like Overstock no longer accepts Bitcoin. Looks like the answer is no. It was one of the first stores to accept Bitcoin online, but it seems to be saying it's not.
So
anymore.
a lot of businesses, I'm speculating for Purse, but a lot of them, they have seen this regulatory KYC diarrhea come down, and some of them, very few of them, have tried to fight it.
This seems to be saying, sorry, another article
It's okay.
says you can spend it on Microsoft, Overstock, Home Depot, Namecheap, Starbucks, Whole Foods, Newegg, and Tesla on their websites.
They're usually like plug-in providers. Think of like AnyPay, where they just say, hey, we'll give you a cut. I don't think the company's actually holding it themselves. That'd be good if they were.
Yeah, you're right. I don't remember what this, BitPay is usually like the big one that you'll see sometimes.
Yep.
So that means like Overstock isn't actually taking Bitcoin, really? Like they are letting you spend it, but not
I
getting
think at some point they had something about holding 10% at some point in history when I remember reading or hearing about it.
Interesting. I mean, I've never tried it.
I mean, it
with
would
them.
behoove them, of course, but like I said, when it comes to business and getting into Bitcoin, it's difficult. The United States government is a regulatory monster when it comes to Bitcoin.
If this article is like the more correct one than those other things I saw before, it says Overstock is currently leading the way in the shopping and cryptocurrency field. Overstock goes as far as to accept multiple kinds of cryptocurrency, not just Bitcoins. Not only is Overstock accepting Bitcoin, but they're holding it too. So that'd be cool if they are. Doesn't say the percentage or anything.
I tell you, I like Patrick Byrne.
Who's that?
He was a CEO a few years ago of Overstock.com. He's been to PorcFest as a speaker multiple times, and I've sold him. He's always bought something off me. He's paid me in crypto. When I was, I'm pretty sure I sold him a $25 stake, and he gave me $250 in Bitcoin.
All right,
several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, or whenever it was. I don't know because I don't. When I'm cooking, I just have my QR codes out there. But
You can add that to the long list of really expensive things.
Yeah. He's
bought with Bitcoin to feed yourself.
He's like, oh, I left you a nice tip, thank you, and he just really appreciate that I was raising my own animals and cooking it there at PorcFest. And
It's cool to think about what that 250 3 years ago would be worth now.
I think it was 4 years ago. But because it was the.
We'll just say 10,000.
Yeah, something like that.
I know steak.
I know I cashed it up and paid property taxes with it.
Nice. Okay, good.
But anyways, and he was just like he's like you'd never know he's like some kind of CEO, millionaire dude. He's like just a regular guy.
Very humble.
Super. Yeah, he's in a way he dresses and acts. He's just like a regular dude. I like him.
Well, any company smart enough to accept, I don't know, freedom money on their website, you would think that, I'm sure he had something to do with it. So you would think that would be reflected in the person too, if he was smart enough to.
And these guys that were talking about
that out.
Using Bitcoin, silver, and gold to go across Argentina, they were talking about these Bitcoin where you can spend Bitcoin maps. Like I remember AnyPay had like a map,
right?
You could spend Bitcoin, and
we had one of those in Keene here.
And he was saying that they basically contacted everybody on the map, and everybody that they got a response from was like, no, we don't accept cryptocurrency. And even he said that there was local establishments that had like a Bitcoin accepted here on the window. They're like, some of them were like, oh yeah, we can do that, and they're like, couldn't figure out how to get the Bitcoin wallet going, and somebody didn't know the password. You know,
the stable market is, you know, whether you like altcoins or not, the stable coin has a true feature. I mean, it has a real function in this reality we live in, because you know, okay, Bitcoin goes down 20% today. You and I are like, that kind of stinks. But you know, down there, where I don't know, you would think they would be more inclined to like hyperinflation anyways. But my point is, they could lose a lot of value very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you figure they're taking on-chain Bitcoin for like a $1.50 bottle of Coke or something, which Coca-Cola is very cheap down south. That's a whole nother.
It's
thing.
very
but
cheap
they stopped
everywhere.
making
Very
it,
addicted to it down there.
They stopped making it with cane sugar in Mexico, but the Mexican Coke you buy in America is made with cane sugar. They make it with corn syrup in Mexico now. It's terrible.
Well, they probably do that because to keep the price down.
Yeah, well, sucks.
Well, I get it. Yeah, and then of course you look at how obesity's really picked up down there too.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of fat people in Mexico, a lot of unhealthy people, and tremendous consumption of soda.
Coca-Cola sponsors everything.
Like
down south.
Well, it's quite literally cheaper than the water, buying the water, and which it is in a lot of places. Not so much here anymore, but I do remember being a teenager and being like, oh, I'm going to buy this Mountain Dew or this Sunkist or this whatever because, you know, I can only buy like a 16-ounce thing of water, but for the same exact price, I could buy a 2-liter Mountain Dew. I remember that.
Remember Spaceballs?
The movie. I remember the movie, but I don't remember really watching it.
So they sold air. They had canned air. The air was so polluted or wherever. I don't know, whatever the case. And he had canned air. And that's before I think bottled water was really the big thing. I mean, you could still, I still remember seeing a little bit, but not so much like it is now.
Mexico, like able to drink the water fine because they grew up drinking it. And it's like a parasite.
I think they still want filtered water.
Or maybe not parasite, but like a bacteria.
Yeah, my experience has been, at least with Honduras, is that you wouldn't want to be drinking out of the river.
So before the
wells would be bad, not too bad.
Like,
why did it get that way? Like, why is it all?
So a lot of their water, almost all these places where I stayed at Acapulco, they all had cisterns on top of the buildings.
So they collected rainwater or had it brought in?
So the hotel we stayed in definitely had water pumped in from a truck.
Okay.
And they had 4 or 5 cisterns way up on the top floor, and it was gravity fed. So it's in February it was like here in July. Mm-hmm. It was in the 90s. It was humid, so it's like the perfect like bacteria, amoeba growth, whatever, kind of stuff in the water. And a lot of the places didn't even have the water tanks covered because the hurricane had wiped out all these. They have like a little cover just to keep the sun off the water so it wouldn't get it so hot. And basically nobody's got. I took cold showers the whole time I was down there. But
yeah, how'd that feel?
Actually, it wasn't bad at all because it was so warm out.
Right,
and,
not cold.
And it wasn't like it was 55-degree water. It was like maybe 70-degree water. I got it in my mouth. I rinsed my toothbrushes with it. But one of the things that we did is we drank bottled water that comes from just a filtration plant. I don't know how they filter it. But we brought charcoal with us. And we took charcoal, me, my wife, and my kids. The day we got on a plane, we all took a couple things of charcoal. My kids are real good about taking it. They would just chew up the charcoal capsules and then drink it down with water, or you just give it to them in a little bit of water. They think it's fun. It doesn't taste like anything. It's not horrible. And I didn't get sick the whole time I was there, and I definitely drank some tap water in Mexico.
Did your kids get sick?
Nope.
Yeah, I know why.
Yeah, why?
They have really strong immune systems.
Oh, yeah. Well, but taking that charcoal is a really helpful buffer. So if you do get anything in your gut that's going to cause you some problems, charcoal does a really good job of like absorbing these positively charged electrons, which like a lot of your bacteria is based on, and things that are going to cause you problems. But we do have pretty good immune systems. We've got very good immune systems. My kids run and play in dirt and, compost and pig pens. And, we take sticks and we go walk around the cow pasture and we examine all the cow poop and we go through it with, a stick or your boot.
It's a beautiful life.
Or some of the kids are just barefoot kicking it around, looking at, So we're looking for things in the cow poop. Are they digesting the grains?
You could sell those by the roadside.
Don't really see worms in like fresh cow poop, but one thing that was pretty interesting is all the dung beetles we find. Okay. Like you flip over a cow patty that's like dry, it's like a week old, or maybe 2 weeks old, and then you break it up a little bit, and there's all these beetles just are starting to just show up everywhere because these beetles they eat the dung and they break it down, and then the only kind of worms that we really find are like maggots from the flies laying in there.
All right.
But that's why you put the chickens on.
I was going to say, chickens would enjoy that.
Yeah, chickens, you do real good on that. And part of our homeschool program is we examine the chicken poop, the cow poop, the pig poop to make sure they're digesting all the food, especially the meat birds. Sometimes we got to grind the feed for the meat birds a little finer because we want them to utilize it all.
Yeah, poop's one of those things that helps the world go around.
Right, and then we
healthy poop.
And then we can also see if we got any parasites. I haven't seen any worms in any poop in the past, like parasitic worms. After I've dewormed my cows and dewormed the pigs, but I've been getting the pigs all from a local farm, Bardo Farm. So their stuff's pretty clean. So I've never seen any worms. But when I did first buy a bunch of pigs from out west, and I wormed those pigs. Man, there was all kinds of worms come out of those pigs when I wormed them.
Out of the actual business end?
Yeah. Well, so my daughter is a year and a half old and she's almost 2 years old and she's helping me, we're feeding the pigs bread, yogurt, and I'm like, you can't eat that. And because she's and then she wants to know why, of course, she's 2. And I'm like, well, this is why. And so the day after we worm the pigs, you go out there and there's a pig's worms hanging out of its butt. And another one poops and there's worms coming out in the poop. And I'm, well, if you eat that pig food, you'll poop worms out the butt.
Okay.
And then she was not interested in eating any of the pig food.
She could understand the visual.
Oh, yeah. She understood the visual. Yeah. And
you could use that for all sorts of things.
Oh yeah.
If you do this, you're going to end up like that pig.
Yep. So yeah, she didn't want that. But anyways, I don't even know how we got on this subject. But
Bitcoin.
Well, one thing I was like, how did the Mexican water get all contaminated?
Oh, right.
I kind of think maybe it's kind of a normal thing, but we aren't used to being exposed to it because basically it's just saying, well, due to the lack of industrial for doing the cleaning it.
Yeah,
so
the septic systems really don't exist a lot in some, I don't know, in your third world countries. I hate using that term because U.S. is going to be third world country soon.
Yeah.
But, for example, a lot of houses, they don't have a septic system.
Right.
They don't have plumbing. So, and what plumbing they do have, oftentimes it just runs out to the street.
So definitely
walking
into the secret garden where Acapulco takes place. There's this alley you got to walk down. There's another way to get to it too. I didn't try that way, but this way was, where most people are walking. And somebody, the first couple of days, you were walking through this little creek that was clearly black water and gray water, that came out of a camper.
Poop water.
Yeah, and it was coming out of these couple of, houses that
and
were
you had
right
to walk
there.
through it?
Oh, you step over it.
You couldn't.
It flooded the street?
No, you definitely flooded the street.
Oh, wow.
So
So that runs into the river, and that's one of the reasons why the water's bad.
So some people kind of were like, hey, complained about it, and the next day they just dumped a couple dump truck loads of gravel, or maybe one dump truck load of gravel. So it still stunk, but you didn't have to actually walk through it because it just kind of trickled through the gravel.
Hey,
and
you're
on top of it.
I said I just now remembered this. The Arctic here in New Hampshire keeps the weak ones out, and the poop in the water down south keeps the weak ones out. If you're looking to migrate somewhere.
Yeah. So, but if you're inland Mexico, if you're not in a major city, if you have your own well, especially in the mountains, and most anywhere in the world, from I understand, the mountain water is the best water. The valley water, everything washes into it, whether it's somebody your neighbor's chickens and cows or your neighbor's septic system. There's a lot of these ponds. Like, for example, my aunt used to live in this place in Sturbridge called Walker Pond, and like the nitrogen level of the pond they always were like having these signs up, oh, you can't swim today, nitrogen levels blah 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 exceeded, and sometimes it would like stink like, you know, it was a septic system, but it was all everybody's septic system from that neighborhood going into it, because it was a glacial pond, and a glacial pond mean it didn't really have, I think I got the term right, it didn't really have a stream that exited the pond. Like the pond just kind of like the earth, you know, it, you know, absorbed the, you know, the water was all in a low area. So the problem with a lot of your city water and your Mexico water is the infrastructure is old. I don't even know where they're getting the water from, to be honest with you, but all around like beach areas, like anywhere like Florida, Texas, like Cape Cod, you really can't drink the water. And you know, everything, all that water is sort of like real close to an ocean is harsh, but the water inland and up on the mountains, because the way
I never had any kind of issues drinking water in Texas or heard anything like that, but it was coming from aqueducts and like or not aqueducts. Right. That's not
Aquifer?
the word. Yeah, underneath the ground.
It was
that's what
treated.
The word is.
So if you were getting water that was from a deep well, or if you were getting water that was treated, you're not really going to have any.
Well, it was like city water,
right.
but
you're not
like
going to have direct issues with it.
a pure filter. But I would think maybe by like Galveston, by the Gulf of Mexico is probably a different story or something.
But definitely the water is tough, and there was city water in Acapulco. Like some places were on city water, and the like Max's Tavern, for example, was on city water, and the city water came from a reservoir that was, I don't know where the reservoir was. It was inland a bit, but the idea was, but if you're going to use any of that water for like cooking, you boiled it. You know, if you're going to use it to make anything,
they weren't making it like the city wasn't making it a priority to keep their water treated, and
there's just not really the infrastructure to do it.
Right. Well, and I think you said it for a minute too. Plus, you're in a your gut is used to different bacteria. So yes, there's you know, someone who's a native there is less likely to have any issues. So Teresa's are a real thing. So get up on that charcoal.
I guarantee you're going to find some bacteria in this water here, but you can handle it. And then the bacteria down there is just different. So do some charcoal.
There's also a lot less regulation in those places. So, you know, if you had the means to build a well or make your water situation or your town's water situation better, you certainly could. And, you know, there's not going to be anybody getting in your way wanting your permit.
That's pretty
At least
cool.
not where I would really go.
603-283-6160 is the phone number. We're still talking about Bitcoin and just other topics, South America. What do you have on your mind? You can call 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join today. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. The former president's team are trying to portray Cohen as an untrustworthy ex-employee out for revenge. FSN's Sally Patterson sent this report from outside the court in New York.
Donald Trump sat smirking as he watched his attorneys grill his former fixer. The defense is working hard to paint Michael Cohen as a vindictive ex-employee who can't be trusted. On Thursday, the court has played audio from last year where Cohen can be heard saying, "I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. I want this man to rot inside for what he did to my family." The former president is charged with 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records in relation to a hush money payment allegedly made ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. And speaking to reporters outside court, he once again called the trial a scam and a sham designed to keep him off the campaign trail. Sally Patterson, New York.
Meanwhile, US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies. He hosted a group of 20 oil executives and lobbyists last month and is expected to provide tax breaks to the industry if he becomes president again. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
The deal in question involves Trump returning incentives for the oil and gas industry worth about $110 billion. President Joe Biden wants tax breaks on them eliminated, including $35 billion in domestic subsidies and $75 billion in foreign fossil fuel income. Trump hosted a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort last month featuring the who's who of the oil and gas industry. Congressional Democrats have launched an investigation into ethical campaign finance and legal issues. Some say this is a quid pro quo offer.
US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur over his handling of classified documents. Hur questioned the president's memory and mental agility in a damning report earlier this year. Biden has already hit back at Hur's characterization of him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The US military has finished building a large floating pier off the coast of Gaza. It's in an attempt to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance for Palestinians in the war-torn Gaza Strip. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
It's an enormous but desperately needed task, one that could help tackle hunger in the territory amid Israel's devastating campaign against Hamas. The United Nations warns of a full-blown famine. Children, it says, are starving to death. Once the US's system is up and running, close to 150 trucks of aid could be delivered per day, carrying 2 million meals, enough to feed almost all of the Gazan population.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the latest news to buffet aviation giant Boeing. The US Department of Justice is threatening the company with criminal prosecution after finding that it has reneged on an agreement it struck with prosecutors after 2 fatal crashes of its 737 MAX jets in 2018 and 2019. 346 people died in the crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. A deferred prosecution agreement was signed by the US government with Boeing in 2021, but now investigators say Boeing has failed to adhere to its terms. Robert Clifford, a lawyer based in Chicago, is lead counsel representing some of the families of the dead.
My clients and I are very pleased with the decision by DOJ to go forward with a continued investigation of Boeing's conduct that led to the needless deaths of 346 people. The clients have been urging DOJ to be more transparent in how they evaluate Boeing's conduct. The government determining that there has been a breach of the agreement is critical to the arguments that families have been making for some time.
Boeing denies being out of compliance with its earlier agreement, says it will now cooperate with the Department of Justice. But there is no doubt a possible criminal prosecution has now inched closer. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies, and US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with special counsel Robert Hur. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Citing their effortless physical strength, affability, and notable bass hands, reports from the country's pools, lakes, and beaches have indicated that once again, the nation's Blakes coasted effortlessly through this year's seasonal lifeguard tryouts. Onion reporters spoke with Cincinnati Centennial Pool's manager, Charles Walker, about the exceptional performance of his Blakes.
We always see strong performances from Blakes, but this year's crop did especially well. Blake D did the 25-yard underwater swim in 86 seconds. Blake S and Blake C both carried subjects 40 yards without breaking a sweat.
In addition to qualifying as pool managers and certified aquatics instructors, the nation's Blakes significantly outshined the nation's stewards in swimming, performing CPR, diving, and glistening.
I'm definitely looking forward to being a lifeguard this summer. I heard the test was kind of hard, but it was actually kind of easy.
Our Kaylas are looking pretty strong too. As long as we have a few Blakes and Kaylas out there on the weekends, we'll be set.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number here. That's 603-283-6160, and you can call that number to bring up whatever's on your mind, your opinion about what we're saying, or a totally different subject. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's Free Talk Live, and Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. And with you on the show tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay Noon.
And Mushmouth Mike.
And we have only really read the first paragraph of this article about this volcano Bitcoin mining in El Salvador.
We beat it up pretty good.
But I think it was on the break that Jay brought up how they're doing it.
Yeah, so I just read a little thing how you get power from a volcano. So basically what this article had said, that the water down in the earth around these volcanoes, so this would be geothermal activity, thermal meaning heat, and so the water in the ground is very hot.
Heat.
And they say that way down it's like 300 to 400 degrees Celsius, and water at sea level boils at 100 degrees Celsius. 300 to 400 degrees Celsius is very, very hot. And as this water comes up it's under tremendous pressure down there. So they drill like they would drill like an oil well or a water well into these pockets of very hot water. And then as the water comes up to the surface, it basically comes up as steam, because by the time it gets to the surface, there's less pressure and it steams. So they basically take that steam, they put it into a pipe, they capture it, and it goes right to a steam turbine. So the way nuclear power is used to make electricity, same exact thing. These nuclear rods create tremendous amounts of heat that heats up water, creates steam, and it goes to a high pressure steam turbine, then a low pressure steam turbine, and then the water gets collected and the steam gets collected in these evaporator towers. and then it gets condensed back into water and it's recycled. And it's the same thing when you burn coal. When they burn natural gas, they use jet engines, essentially jet turbines, to harvest the mechanical power, and then they use the exhaust from these jet engines that are spinning to turn a generator to heat up water to make steam, to run a steam turbine. So there's actually a power plant that a good friend of mine worked at right outside of Worcester, Mass. I forget exactly what it's called, but that's how it worked, and it was one of these very highly efficient. It was a coal power plant that was basically converted over into natural gas, and then they started putting steam turbines to burn the natural gas to produce a lot more. But they were saying that basically one of these sites around a volcano can produce 1 megawatt of electricity, which is you could run a lot off of 1 megawatt. It was like, I don't know, 500 million solar panels or something they were saying. I forget the numbers, but a megawatt, I don't think Keene needs a megawatt.
Wow.
To run. Keene's not a big city.
Yeah, but still.
A megawatt is, was it 100 million kilowatts? Is that right? Or a million?
Wouldn't it be 1,000 kilowatts?
I don't know.
1,000 kilowatts?
Just the other day, Colin was like testing me. He was like, how many billions are in a trillion? I don't even remember the answer. I was like, 100?
Consult
That
the
doesn't
book
make
of
sense.
knowledge.
Yeah,
So Keene probably needs more
shiny
than,
book of knowledge.
probably takes a few megawatts to run. I forget exactly,
Wait, I said
all the
1,000, not
calculations.
100, but it was still wrong. But anyways, 100, yeah, I know there's such a thing as 100
But-
billion. It doesn't matter.
To make electricity, you gotta have some kind of fuel that either runs an engine or a turbine, or you use water power, hydropower, which is a good source. But the geothermal, like they do this in Iceland also, there's a lot of geothermal activity up there. So you basically got this steam that comes out of the ground, and you just harness it.
I was just reading today, somebody said on Twitter, like, I want to move to Ireland because, I don't know.
Ireland or Iceland?
No, they said Ireland. And then somebody says to them, if you want to live somewhere cold and rainy, live in Iceland instead, because at least they have all this heat coming from the ground and they warm their houses with it and stuff. And Iceland doesn't have that, or Ireland doesn't have that. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. You can live in a cold, rainy place, but...
There's also this place in Colorado I went to years ago called Hot Sulphur Springs. And you go into like these like caves, and they have these like basically like hot water baths, and
So
it's just
cool.
natural, and it's like sulfur water, like
I
someone really
never
stink
went
like
to
sulfur.
that. The
Very
whole time
cool
I lived
places
in-
to go, yeah.
I really want to go to one. The whole time I lived in Utah, I was like just out of reach of like all the things around me that were like that.
Some of these that are built up as resorts.
Yeah,
They're not
there are some
overly
in
expensive,
Idaho.
too.
Hot
so-
Sulphur Springs, Colorado is pretty close to Utah. It's right off of I-70, not far. It's in western Colorado up there in the mountains.
Yeah, and I was in western Utah, so I was like closer to Nevada. But I know there are some in Nevada and some in Ohio and some in Wyoming, but it's like just far enough away. Well, I think this is a pretty good thing to bring up because, as the article from BitcoinMagazine.com says, it says the country's mining accomplishments stand in stark contrast to the scrutiny Bitcoin miners face worldwide over energy usage, because people are always saying like Bitcoin uses a lot of energy and it's ridiculous.
Not
like
compared to legacy financial systems.
No,
Look
it's
at
just
these
scare tactics.
just like
buildings
the buildings with the lights on. That's so much more energy than it takes to mine Bitcoin. It's ridiculous. People just say things.
Not to mention, the only reason this fiat dollar has any power is because you want to start talking about, pollution, for example, carbon footprint. And carbon's garbage. We need this whole carbon thing is total BS.
We are carbon.
We need more carbon. We're going to be really cold if there's some less carbon. But and carbon is CO2 is what makes all the plants grow. CO2. When you start eliminating CO2 and getting rid of CO2, you create deserts because vegetation can't grow unless there's enough carbon dioxide.
I don't want to live in the desert.
So, anyways, these where was I going with this?
Carbon.
So the banking. So to make fiat dollars work, you have to drop lots and lots of bombs. And all these bombs are paid for by governments.
And they're polluting.
And the governments have to use militaries like police, sheriffs, federal officers to collect taxes from the slaves in order to build bombs.
You have to fly all the soldiers over there.
And so
you're fighting.
Yeah, and so you got to murder a bunch of people, send your own people to be slaughtered. and it all goes to.
They get mad when like Taylor Swift flies on her private jet, but you're always shipping soldiers over to Iraq and whatever else.
So to make U.S. dollars work, you got to have like laundering operations, like they've been running out of Kiev for a while, out of Ukraine. So and now we're learning that the Russians are advancing and just demolishing and taking over all parts of Ukraine. And there was hundreds of millions and billions of dollars that the U.S. sent to Ukraine to have armaments and barricades and all kinds of defensive measures, which it didn't go into any of it because it was all funneled into a whole bunch of Democrat campaigns and a bunch of military industrial complex companies like Halliburton and Boeing and Archer Midland Daniels, all of the Stuart Stevenson, all the parasite military contractors. And so now and none of this money was used over there in Ukraine. They're actually taking people off the streets in Ukraine now, and they're forcing them to go on the front lines, and it's illegal to videotape this from what I understand. And so that is the cost of fiat, is massive wars all the way around the world. And just, because that is the slavery mechanism to where this idea that Bitcoin has, some kind of negative effect is just such a crock of BS.
But it can have a negative effect on the state, and that's why this BS
I'm
is
saying
talked
on
about.
the negative effect on the environment.
No, I get it, and that's why it has a negative effect on the state. So the mouthpieces of the state, which is most all of the news agencies that exist, especially the ones that get together, like whatever, they come up with this stupid list of things like it uses too much power. And then if they already have this climate change narrative, it's very easy to get lumped in with that.
Roll with it, and they already have the propaganda in the colleges and the schools. I remember when I was a little kid, they were just like giving us homework, and it was like, climate change is a thing. It's bad.
Programming you.
I was in second grade. I was 7 years old, 1987, 1988, something like that. And I remember that we all got to go into, like, we had these classrooms that we didn't have a gymnasium in a school or an auditorium or anything. It was a very small school, old school, 200-year-old schoolhouse, basically, 2-story schoolhouse, and had like 8 classrooms in total, and it was, we all got to go into like one classroom, a whole bunch of us, and they wheeled out the TV on the rolling cart. The one that was like, it was 6 foot off the ground, the double-decker rolling cart.
It was like a VCR player.
Yep, and they put a VHS tape in, and it was Al Gore. And it was Al Gore, maybe his wife, Tipper Gore.
I remember these.
And so the kid goes out, and he's like, they're like, in the year 2020, you are not going to be able to go outside. By the time you're 18 years old, and this was like propaganda, and so if you want to go outside and play, it shows.
I wonder if your dad knew anything about
this.
Oh yeah,
my dad definitely did. I remember him.
This turned in. Dad probably knew about that.
Yeah, my dad was. Well, he was bringing me to John Birch Society meetings. Back
I just
then.
mean, like, did he know they were wheeling this TV in and showing you guys
I
this?
talked to him about it, and basically, I was like, oh, this is a hoax. This is propaganda. And there was a whole parent-teacher meeting about this. My dad had a lot of parent-teacher meetings.
I bet.
Because, I remember them talking about this, the vaccine stuff when I was a little kid. So I was like, I was the original anti-vaxxer, when I was like 7, 8 years old in school, because I'm like, yeah, my dad's not getting me vaccines because he doesn't want me getting, injected with monkey venom and snake pus or whatever.
No one cared when I said that when I was like in elementary school or even like middle and high school. Actually, none of the time I was in school did anyone care when I was like, yeah, I never got vaccinated. Yeah, my mom would just give me religious exemptions. They'd be like, oh, that's normal. And then all of a sudden, like a couple years or a year before COVID, they started ramping up this propaganda that's like, if someone isn't vaccinated, they're like a danger to you.
Yeah, and CorbettReport.com, James Corbett, did a whole thing a couple years ago about how the states, the countries that had the most amount of people testing positive for COVID or reported COVID cases were the ones that had the highest amount of flu vaccines given to people previously. So anyways, they roll out this propaganda, this climate change propaganda. The kid's like wearing like a yellow poncho, which is his special rain suit. He has to like don some kind of like mask over his face, like
because there's like radiation and stuff falling or something.
Maximum effect.
He's going out to play baseball with his friends, and this is how you're going to have to do it in the year 2020. And there was similar propaganda. So this was like 1987, 88. This was out, and there was similar propaganda that was pushed in the 70s on on students all across America about this climate thing. And they've actually been pushing this climate thing about every 10 years, 15 years, really hard, like to every generation. Mostly
all about
through
depopulation, right?
All kinds of things, but it's just about control, and in general. And the best way to control people is to fear them. So if you're afeared, you're going to be easy to control. And so they start planting these seeds of fear, in the kids in the public schools with this massive thing's going to happen you can do nothing about.
Yeah.
And, the only way to solve it is quite literally, to erase people.
Yeah.
Is the whole thing. And
too many of us.
Yeah, they were saying there's too many people. When I was in school, they would say like it was just a fact. They would give me all kinds of. They actually called it global warming back then, like global warming propaganda, and drugs are bad propaganda, and if you have sex, you'll get an STD propaganda. And then one that is so far has been pretty unique to just like my Tennessee school district, as far as the people I've talked to. No one else ever says like, oh, I had that too. Is they would roll out the TV and put in the VCR, but it would be about duds. It would be like, if you go play in the woods, don't touch something metal that looks like this. It could be a dud from the Civil War.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's just like, that scared me so bad. I love to play outside, so I was like, no, I'm going to see one.
I could see that, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go touch the grass or look up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, stare at the box in the corner.
Yeah, it seemed like it was purposeful fear.
I also remember in first grade and second grade, I don't know if we did it in third grade, but there was that was Cold War stuff. So like 1986, I was in first grade, and we would do these drills where we would
terrible,
where we'd get under our desk because that's going to save us from the nuclear blast.
So dumb.
Yeah,
false hope.
False
hope.
Oh yeah, false hope. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I had a state school that I went to, public school. For those of you who don't understand the mental disease, that my first grade teacher, Mr. Woosley, I still remember this guy. He was great. He had a farm, and we could go on field trips to his house. And this was not like a homeschool group. I mean, this was a tax funded school. So maybe that there was a little bit of hope for the state funded schools down in the South. Then because we actually went out and touched dirt and saw what goat manure looked like and got to play with chickens and stuff like that.
Kind of like going to my house.
Exactly, like going to your house. From what I can remember.
My shop teacher in high school, his name was Mr. Webb. He farmed, so me and a handful of kids used to help him stack hay, and in the summertime. And he was, so we had this whole metal shop in this brand new school, but there was no technical metal shop teacher, so we couldn't do any like metal shop. So all these equipment's like 5 years old, never been touched. It didn't even have a power cord hooked up to it yet, because you could either make it 3-phase or single phase depending on how you wired it.
Probably had a lot of safety mechanisms on it, didn't it?
Not really. It was just like regular shop equipment.
Pay attention.
It was pretty good. We had a Bridgeport that had some kind of safety guard stuff. We ended up taking off because it was really hard to use. But
that's usually how it is.
But we had a Bridgeport, a lathe, we had welder, plasma cutter, stick welder, MIG welder, TIG welder. I basically was like, hey, I want to use this stuff, Mr. Webb. He's like, all right, no problem. I kind of knew a little bit about welding. And so me and my buddies, was like, I guess I was 1994. I guess I was a freshman, or 93. I was in 8th grade in that high school, had 8th through 12th. So he just let us do it. He was like, yeah, go for it. Just got to be safe. And, but everybody burns themselves a little bit welding.
Nowadays, that it would be like very like you have to hand off the goggles and.
Oh, they wouldn't be doing that now.
They just don't do it at all.
They might teach some trades here in New Hampshire.
They have
New Hampshire high schools.
There's a couple trade schools in New Hampshire I'm aware of.
For high school, like Job Corps.
Mm-hmm.
In Palmer, Mass, there's a school called. I went to Palmer High School, and there was a school called Pathfinder Regional Vocational Technical High School where you learned a bunch of that stuff. Actually, most of my peers who went to Pathfinder that didn't get into drugs or drinking, They're thriving. They're doing good. They're electricians. They're mechanics. They're body work guys. They're machinists. The machinist thing's a little tough. It's hard to make much more than $25 working in some machine shop, because like where they're working for Ruger or like some big factory, because it's that corporate stuff. But a lot of like the electricians and the plumbers and the welders and the auto body guys, they can sort of just name their price.
It's just 6-figure jobs easy.
Oh yeah,
Not to mention with inflation.
Yes. So like all my buddies that did the electrical thing, that did the plumbing at Pathfinder, did the which would be HVAC, I guess, and did what was the other thing? Like they had a whole house building like program there.
That's such a novel idea that a young human would go to a place of learning and learn a skill,
right,
where they could take care of themselves and their community.
Yep. So those guys, have done well, but definitely that shop teacher was awesome. But the year I left, 1998, I remember I talked to him like 5 or 6 years later. I ran into him, I'm like, hey, how's things going? He's like, oh, I'm getting ready to retire. I'm like, is anybody using the mill or the Bridgeport or the welders, over at the shop? He's like, none of that stuff's been touched since you've been there. And we we're not really authorized to use it. They, I kind of had a real anti-gun teacher, and so I built a gun in the metal shop.
How do you like that?
They didn't like it at all, but I didn't finish it. So basically, it was all you had to do was cut the end off of it, and it was a functional gun. I didn't,
Did you get in like actual trouble, or
No.
was she just like,
just stop doing
hey,
No, I just made a point that, hey, look it. Anybody can make a gun, so making guns illegal is like really stupid.
I got in trouble in elementary school, and yeah, this is probably more my parents' politics than like something I decided to do, because I was literally in 5th grade. But on Earth Day, my mom made a shirt that said "Earth Day is socialism," and I just wore that to school. I didn't really know what it meant or anything, but there was like a teacher that wasn't even my teacher when I was in the hallway going to lunch, like pointing at me and talking to the other teachers, and I was like, what's going on? I got sent to the principal's office, and I was like obviously a really good kid, so I was like, what's going on? And the principal made me turn my shirt inside out.
No, I wore those. They didn't have statements like that on them. But yeah, I remember that.
That's crazy. Like that they didn't ask my mom or anything, so my mom was pissed. But I also had a teacher that was just obviously very liberal, so I don't even know how I caught on to this, but one day, I don't even know how, like, it's just like Fox News was on in my house, and I knew that this teacher was like very liberal by little things she would say. And like one time we had to draw something that was like, I don't know, good for society, and I drew an oil rig.
Yeah,
and she
like
was mad.
like a pump.
Yeah.
Those things that you're from Texas, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
well-
so those are everywhere.
They're not everywhere. In
Derrick,
San
is that what
Antonio.
that's called?
Oh yeah, Derrick.
Oil Derrick, yep.
Yeah, I drew something like that. I think I had to like go home and like look it on the internet probably, because I lived in Tennessee. But
Yeah, like Roughnecks, they're like real men. They work really hard. Like oil.
it's like the worst job I can imagine.
Oil, you like for example,
Just
like,
dangerous. Probably not bad.
There's
Probably gets a lot of
no
money.
women out there, roughnecking, working on oil derricks. There
Probably
isn't,
not,
because
yeah.
it is a physically abusive job, and it's like you don't see any guys in the trenches and in the mud on these derricks 50 years old. They're all like 18 to like 25.
Yeah, it's always something in Texas, like even in San Antonio, you'll always hear people like, I don't know, I think like, especially like a 18, 25-year-old guy, like, I think that I'm going to probably just go spend a year out in the oil fields and like make a bunch of money and
The
come
oil
back.
patch. Yeah, I knew. I've been going to Colorado pretty much my entire life. So my mom lived out there. Moved out there when I was a little kid, and I knew a bunch of these roughnecks. Northeast Colorado is a lot of oil ground. There's oil rigs set up all over the place. Tons of fracking. Actually, they shut the fracking down a few years ago, I guess. But these guys would go, work in the oil patch, as they would for a year, and they'd make like $500,000, and 10 years ago, and they were, but they were working, 12 hours on, 12 hours off, or sometimes they'd work 6 hours on, 6 hours off, 6 hours on, 6 hours off.
That's so weird.
They'd
Terrible.
have around all these oil rigs, you'd see like 15, 20 campers parked out there, because they're just doing nothing but working, but they'd make a, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 in a year, and then they would go do something else.
A little purposeful discomfort.
One thing I'm always thinking about, like those jobs, like fiber splicing on the side of the road, you're always on call. It's like those guys are like exhausted and doing like really important infrastructure work. It's surprising that they get it done and everything's fine. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. The former president's team are trying to portray Cohen as an untrustworthy ex-employee out for revenge. Ever since Sally Patterson sent this report from outside the court in New York.
Donald Trump sat smirking as he watched his attorneys grill his former fixer. The defense is working hard to paint Michael Cohen as a vindictive ex-employee who can't be trusted. On Thursday, the court has played audio from last year where Cohen can be heard saying, "I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. I want this man to rot inside for what he did to my family." The former president is charged with 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records in relation to a hush money payment allegedly made ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. And speaking to reporters outside court, he once again called the trial a scam and a sham designed to keep him off the campaign trail. Sally Patterson, New York.
Meanwhile, US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies. He hosted a group of 20 oil executives and lobbyists last month and is expected to provide tax breaks to the industry if he becomes president again. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
The deal in question involves Trump returning incentives for the oil and gas industry, worth about $110 billion. President Joe Biden wants tax breaks on them eliminated, including $35 billion in domestic subsidies and $75 billion in foreign fossil fuel income. Trump hosted a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort last month featuring the who's who of the oil and gas industry. Congressional Democrats have launched an investigation into ethical campaign finance and legal issues. Some say this is a quid pro quo offer.
US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur over his handling of classified documents. Hur questioned the president's memory and mental agility in a damning report earlier this year. Biden has already hit back at Hur's characterization of him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The US military has finished building a large floating pier off the coast of Gaza. It's in an attempt to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance for Palestinians in the war-torn Gaza Strip. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
It's an enormous but desperately needed task, one that could help tackle hunger in the territory amid Israel's devastating campaign against Hamas. The United Nations warns of a full-blown famine. Children, it says, are starving to death. Once the US's system is up and running, close to 150 trucks of aid could be delivered per day, carrying 2 million meals, enough to feed almost all of the Gazan population.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number. That's 603-283-6160. And I would like to thank David Itzy, who is a gold level amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that David went to amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com to learn how he could help to advertise, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. And we really appreciate it. So thank you so much to David Itzy. And
Say how much it is?
Gold means it's at least $10 a month.
Nice.
Yes, thank you so much.
Nice
David.
value for value there.
Yeah, so you can go to amps.freetalklive.com to learn how you can get some perks and benefits for being an amplifier and supporting the show. So we appreciate everybody who does that. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay.
Mushmouth Mike.
And you can call 603-283-6160 with whatever's on your mind. This from dailystar.co.uk. Pope to hold press conference on aliens and the supernatural. And people are confused. Well, they're always confused.
Operation Bluebeam, I feel coming. You know what that is?
Yeah, it's this idea that they would put like a holographic image in the sky and people will think it's aliens coming.
Yep, like cross two lasers or something like that. And it looks like there's a stuff in the sky.
Yeah. At a Beyonce concert, lots of people were saying Project Bluebeam technology because there were these crazy light shows. It wasn't like that pretty or anything. It was like monsters.
I mean, the people, I'm not surprised by any means that these crazy evil people try to throw on us anymore. And it's all possible.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why we're here to talk about it.
Yep. My parents they're Christian, so they've always talked about how one day it would be so easy for the government to just make people think, oh, aliens came back. Oh, and they're like, whichever way you want to make it. They're either bad and there are overlords now.
We need to
like
create
good.
a one world government, a one world military. Yep. Everybody needs to unite, and we need to pay taxes and tax you more so the aliens don't hurt us. Just like
that's totally what the movies usually are about. Like,
right.
Oh, and then the world comes together to fight the alien.
But right now
war.
they're warming us up to it with climate change. Everybody needs to pay a carbon tax to make the climate gooder. Is the big narrative pushed now.
I like your newspeak there.
Plus good.
Double plus.
It says, the last time the Vatican held a press conference about aliens and supernatural phenomena was in February 1978, and they're saying, what would tomorrow's event mean for the Pope?
So what happened right after February 1978, shortly after a few years? Interest rates were like 24% to like buy a house in the early 80s. My father, his first mortgage was 24% on a house that he bought in 1979, I think he said. And so just, we're going that way now with these really high interest rates. And interest rates should be in the 20s because that's sort of more like a free market, situation, of interest rates. How much would you want to not have $100,000 of your money for 30 years, for example, right? What's that worth to you? But when you got the Federal Reserve pumping money, just creating money out of nothing, they can have these artificially low interest rates, therefore driving these housing markets. But also that house that had a 24% interest rate on it in 1979 was a 2-family house on 1 acre, and it was like $17,000.
Nice.
It's nice how the conversation always keeps coming back to money.
Well, it's just what you got to do is follow.
I realize that it's a mechanism that has been perverted and used to enslave, and that's how we get these horrible governments that we have.
When any authority figure starts talking about aliens, and that's just funny, you said 1978, it seems like what was something we needed a distraction from? How do we get to 24% interest rate in the early 80s? Or what? And my father's 24% interest rate, I don't know if that was a high end or a low end or middle range. I was just I was just born in 79, but it was like it was that $17,000 house right now is probably $750,000 today at or a year ago or 2 years ago at 4.9% or 3.9%, whatever,
adjusted for inflation.
Sure.
And one thing about the conversation I was going back to the money is I think it's kind of a good thing because that's like a lot of people's waking up point is just like, oh, the government went after me. And so I was like, hey, wait, these people are kind of these people are kind of bad. I can't say the second part of that on the radio. But some people's waking up point is simply just, I figured out something's wrong with the money. Like Silver Day was saying that exactly, that he was in Iraq, maybe, or Afghanistan, and he was like, yeah, something weird's going on here. And then he starts looking into specifically the money, and he's like, something's very wrong here. He had an opportunity to like keep working for the government, some cushy job, and he's like, no thanks, I'm going to New Hampshire and I'm going to start figuring out silver. Which
he's done and has a local mint.
Yep.
So if you want to come visit New Hampshire and buy some silver, great, he's got it. And if you want to live here, you'd have local New Hampshireites with their own foundry making their own stuff with a retail store.
He's the only silver mint in New Hampshire, he said.
I do not doubt it. He's been at it for a long time.
And if you go to localsilvermint.com, you can click on go localsilvermint.com. You can buy the most beautiful 1/10 ounce silver rounds or squares. Those things were very popular. When I went to Mexico, I sold all of them. I was like, wow, 1/10 ounce silver. And you go on his website, and there's a way to click to go to like, I can't remember the actual, but there's a whole bunch of online retailers like JM Bullion, I believe, SD Bullion, whatever these. And I don't know if Ampex, if he's on there, but it is the cheapest 1/10 ounce silver you can buy. And yeah, he's been working at this for a long time, and I'm really happy for him that he's got it going. He's got it happening now.
It's about getting real money into the hands of the people that are going to need it.
And this fractional silver is so good because when there is a financial collapse, when the USD doesn't work for whatever reason, and I've been hearing about this literally since I've been 6 years old. So for almost 40 years now, I've been, there's been someone saying in 6 months, it's all going to fall apart. And I was 6 years old when I first heard this comment from a guy.
Slowly falling apart.
And I've been kind of disappointed the last 40 years that, it hasn't fallen apart yet. But the thing with fractional silver and like the goldbacks, but the goldbacks, the premiums on them is just like double to where the fractional silver premium is, well, depending on how you buy it, it's basically, I bet if you buy a lot of it, it's like $12 over spot for these 1/10 ounce, from what I understand. And the thing is like you can trade and barter. You can buy a dozen eggs, with your fractional silver. You can buy a chicken. You can buy some meat to where the idea is, silver gets to $50, $60, $100 an ounce because of major, fiat financial collapse. And you got 10-ounce bars of silver, it's going to be hard to just, buy that dozen eggs and not make change. Or even 1 ounce bar. 1 ounce might be too much. And then gold, of course, is so valuable. It's very hard to, deal with an ounce of gold. How do you, break a $2,000 bill, basically?
And you can, just to be clear, here in New Hampshire, you can trade real money for these things you just mentioned, right? Like beef, chicken, vegetables.
Welding, car repair, tree work.
Lots of people exist here like that will trade for your real money.
There's actually a guy in New Hampshire the gas station that will sell you gasoline or diesel fuel. I bought some diesel fuel with some silver. I've bought diesel fuel with gold backs. Actually, I bought a bunch of hay with silver the other day. A guy I've been dealing with a little bit. I'm like, you want silver or cash? He's like, bring me some silver.
Yeah, I say these things encouraging people to come up here with us too, because like, you put on Man Camp, which is just exactly what it sounds. Well, I don't know. Let's be specific.
I think a lot of people think it's like for grown men that are soy boys to go learn to be men, but it's more for kids, right?
Well, it's sort of
both.
It's for both. So
Okay.
it started as for kids.
Okay.
But the first people who have really done my Man Camp actually needed the soy boy recovery program because there wasn't somebody teaching them how to be a man when they were 6 years old, 3 years old. So I've been doing Man Camp with my kids who are now 2 and 4. So like now we have we're doing my Man Camp homeschool co-op 2 days a week at my place, and so 1 day a week is more of like the young kids, the toddlers, and I got them just gardening, harvesting, grass is growing pretty good. So, pulling the grass, picking the weeds, putting them in wagons, bringing them to the cows. We're going to actually butcher birds in like 2 weeks. So the kids will be butchering birds with us. And then on Thursdays, I've been doing some blacksmithing with some kids. I've got a couple of kids doing a little bit of welding, and but I've been doing that kind of stuff I was doing years ago in Massachusetts on a horse farm, teaching letting kids weld and drive tractors and do all this kind of stuff. Posterity, investing in our posterity. And so the idea is these kids, whatever a kid does for a dopamine hit before they're 6 years old, before their brain's 90%, 95% developed, is the dopamine hit they're going to chase for the rest of their life. So if it's like, if they're just looking at devices, they're going to chase that dopamine hit. But if they're like feeding chickens, and I just put my kids to work, and my buddies come over and put their kids to work, as part of our homeschool co-op. And especially the kids that are like, in the townhouses and living in condos in the city or in suburbia, they don't have this. They come to my place and there's like chickens, and they can pick eggs and
get to run tractors,
and they can drive tractors and
the bucket
and the excavator and do stuff like that. And not even that, like even just riding a 4-wheeler around. My buddy's 6-year-old, 5-year-old, a whole bunch of kids, been letting them ride a little kids 4-wheeler we got around. They love that. That's a fun thing, and I really want to push people, especially that aren't on farms, to get their kids into motorsports culture. Get them to like earn their dopamine hit with motorsports. Like your oldest son is doing, Mike is doing pretty well for himself. He's got a job in the automotive industry. And he's
19.
Yeah.
And he started
19.
off just like, I'm the lackey and I hate my job. I come home dirty every day. I hate it so much because I'm just the person who goes and puts on the tires. And he worked himself up to the most highest making salesperson on the job.
And he's doing well. I told him, every kid, well, not every kid, but a lot of them want the cake first, right? I said, sometimes you got to shovel a bit of poop before you can get that cake.
Right.
And he figured it out.
So I got them shoveling poop at 5 years old, and after they shovel poop, they get to ride the 4-wheeler. So like, it doesn't have to be just farming. And that's another thing we're going to do, the garden tractor pulling also this summer with some of these kids.
I want to get into that.
Yeah, we're going to get into that. And
lawn mowers.
Yep. And
so loud. I hated that at the county fair. They were doing the dragging thing. I was like, that's too loud.
We'll bring you some headphones.
Wear earplugs. I bought a bunch of really nice like toddler and youth ear pros, which fit the kids well. And my kids love wearing their earmuffs because ever since they've been, so I got ones like when they're 6-7 months old and they're riding on a tractor with me or whatever. I put the earmuffs on them.
They get used to it.
And they get used to it and they like it. And
they'll ask for them too.
And they see me wear it and they want to wear it.
You look
and
cool.
Yep. And so, they just want to do whatever, you're doing. They're basically like little chickens, just little chickens learn from the big chickens. So whatever, the adults do, the kids just want to do. And whatever the other kids do that looks interesting or different, the kids want to do. It is amazing how much they mimic each other. So when I'm like, when I'm using like the little pitchfork one-handed because I can use it one-handed, they try to use it one-handed. So like I have to use it two-handed just to like show them like all these little tools they get, like I got this little kid's pitchfork, for example.
It's a real pitchfork. It's just made for like a midget.
Yeah, it's made for like a 5-year-old. It's a 6-year-old.
Short person.
Yeah, it's a really little pitchfork.
I'd probably be using that pitchfork.
It's too big for you.
Really?
Yes. I actually got it out in the truck. I can show it to you. But it's pretty sweet. It was like $50. It's a really nice made pitchfork. So I got it for these kids because I only have like a couple of tools that work really well for like the 3- and 4-year-olds and the 5-year-olds, and they want to fight over them. Mm-hmm. So I bought a really high-end pitchfork because it just works well for cleaning out chicken coops and cleaning the pig pen. And
for a load that they can actually pick up, right?
Right. They can manage it. They can pick it up.
I wonder if people know that we're talking about a bunch of people that aren't just like, Jay's childhood friends, but people that purposely moved to New Hampshire to be part of the community that he is part of, like a bunch of people that came from all different parts of the state, now live in New Hampshire. World. Yeah, even different parts of the world. Live in New Hampshire now and are sending their kids to Jay's man camp. It's not just like...
Well, they don't send their kids. The moms come.
Yeah.
Occasionally dad comes. Mostly it's moms coming to the homeschool co-op days. And yeah, so it's literally people who move from New York, New Jersey, there's
Philadelphia, I know.
Yep, California, Philadelphia, Carolinas, Florida, and actually, and probably about a third of the ones that come are just locals. Like 3 families that show up, they've been living in Henniker or Ware their entire lives. So it's maybe even half of it is locals, and they really like it. And they're like, oh yeah, I used to go to my grandpa's farm or my uncle's farm, but before the town took it for taxes because
that's the best way we get out of this thing is to continue building that community. I mean, and if you know a guy that's got a farm, that's probably a good place to go over and help him out and make those connections just because it's a good idea. But specifically, like, don't wait until there's, some sort of big shutdown. There's no fuel. You already want to know the people where you can get your food.
So
during a time of stress is like not the time you want to be making new connections.
Right. So one of the things that I try to stress to people where they're like, oh, I live, in this, quadplex. I got a condo, I can only have, X amount of garden boxes. I live, whatever, Miami, Florida, or just outside of Miami.
In a prison.
I'm like, there is, or wherever.
Concrete jungle.
Some kind of suburbia. And I'm like, well, go to a farm. Find a small local farm, and you and your kids show up there and do some chores.
They will put you to work.
They will put you to work. Now, if you're like, I'm just going to show you. So when you first start this relationship, I suggest that you approach the farmer and you say something like, all right, I want you to teach, I want my kids to work on your farm, and I'm going to work with them too, and I'm going to pay you for your distraction, for your time, because it's not efficient when you got a bunch of people who don't know which end of the cow you milk, for example, or which end of the pitchfork to hold, and then because you got to train them. So you give the farmer some money. And then it gets to the point to where the kids become valuable, to where the farmer can be like, all right, this is what you go do today, and doesn't have to deal with it. And then, so yeah, you may have to get up at 4 a.m., get your kids out of bed and go to the farm, and then bring your kids back home and, go to your job at 8 o'clock if that's what it takes. Or instead of, going to a whole bunch of sports ball games, 4 times a year, or all seasons of the year, playing all sports ball, you take your kids, to a farm, and you bring them to a farm and you put them to work. Or you start getting into motorsports. Getting the kids into motorsports at a young age, riding dirt bikes, garden tractor pulling, whatever. Like, Citydiots can do this stuff. You can Citydiots,
I like
yes.
that.
You can do this stuff. You can go to Home Depot and you can buy a 5x7 little trailer to put behind your Toyota Prius, and you could put your 2 dirt bikes on it, or your little ATVs, or your garden tractor, and almost anywhere in the country, and you can go to sanctioned events to like do these kind of things. And whatever motorsports thing you're going to do, your kid's going to get a dopamine hit from that. That wanting to race, wanting to compete,
that risk
drive
that their mind is so searching for.
Yeah, that driving that tractor, letting them be in control of the tractor, or the 4-wheeler, or the dirt bike, whatever. And it's kind of like preschool for auto mechanics. So, like in my Anarchapulco presentation, which you can go buy this at anarchapulco.com, you can use the promo code JAY and get a 10% discount for the replays of Anarchapulco 2024, which there was a whole bunch of really good stuff on there. But in my presentation, which was Thursday afternoon, I talk about some of these kids, they just do sports ball their entire life. And actually, sports are good. They have a lot of good things, especially for like city urban kids that got nothing to do. Sports are okay. But when you start doing sports, and that's all these kids do is sports, and that's the only thing they know, and it's what they want to go to college for, and so they're programmed and pushed to like go get this college. To
me, it's just propaganda to
Right.
be like,
well, it's
you're
bread
not
and
an
circus.
individual. But my sister found it very valuable. I was never in a sport. I joined track for like a week, and I was like, this is terrible.
It's hard.
But my sister says she gained like lots of like important values from it. But it's just like,
well, that's good.
I had a million siblings. I didn't need to go join a sport to learn how to like get along with people.
But it would be a shame if you did something and didn't get value out of it. So that's good your sister got value out of it. And I know plenty of people got some value out of sports. The problem is, what is the average 30-year-old athlete worth? At best, he's a phys ed teacher. And how many people will actually get the chance to become a phys ed teacher? Not everybody is going to be a Peyton Manning. But that's like a 1/1,000,000% of the population.
Oh, they make them think they will be, though.
But right, through the propaganda. And so now
it's kind of like rappers, like, oh, you'll be the next big rapper if you just start putting music on SoundCloud.
So
it's possible.
So one thing I got to say about jocks, like one thing I've always admired about the jocks, the kids who were really into sports, when it came to like working hard, like you could put those guys on a roofing crew. They can stack hay. They can, do like really hard, like, man work. Like a lot of your like high school jocks, especially from the Midwest, those guys make really good roughnecks, and they go work for a couple of years in an oil patch and
a lot of
make
times
a
they're
lot of money.
actually not smoking weed. They're like, no, I can't smoke weed because of being on the team.
They're good at pitching hay.
Yep, I'm good at pitching hay. So anyways, I haven't pitched much hay because that was before balers. You pitched it with the pitchfork. Now we throw it with, because it's
I remember
in a bale.
pitching hay for a guy making like a quarter a bale.
Yep.
That day, like that was the worst.
It's good
I didn't
workout.
know what I was getting but I was a soy boy at that.
So anyways, what is your average 30-year-old mechanic worth? So if you have a kid, for example, that you get like
$150 a year.
Oh, easy, right? So if you have a kid, you get him to like earn his dopamine hits from motorsports culture, car culture, whatever it is. And even like if you got like a muscle car or like a class, you don't even need a muscle car.
And even just like guys who are into cars in general, it's like, oh, he's valuable to me because he can fix my car if it's broken.
Yeah, so that's another thing too, is like one of the things I like to give these like pep talks and kind of lectures to teenage boys, because I want them to sort of like, have a reason to like make themselves valuable. So I will say to them, do you like girls? Oh yeah, I like girls. Right? So, and some of them are like, no, not really. I don't like girls. Or like, so do you want to be valuable? Do you want to be more valuable alive than dead to the people around you? Get some skills. And so when you get kids into doing like the motorsports culture, if you can fix a car, like competently fix a car, which a lot of kids growing up on farms, growing up wrenching on cars with grandpa or the uncle, they're pretty competent by the time they're able to drive 16, 17 years old to like fix about anything. When I was 17 years old, I had to rebuild engines, pulled transmissions, swapping in, doing all kinds of stuff like that, fixing all kinds of things because, I was a poor kid on a farm and, if we had...
You've never been poor.
We had a dirt track. We were financially poor, but yeah, definitely skilled, wealthy and
super
skills
wealthy,
and
rich
friends.
man here talking.
And lots of brothers and your dad they loved.
Absolutely.
Yep. Well, so I'll get to wealth in a minute. But so when they grow up doing that stuff, I tell them, if you get into cars, learn how to fix cars. If you can fix cars, you can fix the leaky sink. You can probably fix the furnace. You can probably do a wiring issue. You can fix, all these things in the house. And, being able to maintain and provide a house, is very attractive to a woman. Being able to keep a car going is very attractive to a woman. The right kind of women. The women that are, posting on Instagram and, Snapchat and all this stuff all the time, just trying to get attention. That's not the kind of woman you want. Because
now I know why my woman has stuck with me for all these years. Because I've had my moments, and now I think listening to you say that, I'm listening. That wait a minute, I could do all these things.
So teenage boys have very much influenced them to get into car culture, because that is just so valuable. 30-year-old mechanics are worth $150K.
The only
right
time
now.
I ever dated a guy that was like younger than me, mechanic. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. You can call in with whatever is on your mind. Don't go anywhere. More coming up.
A new video game is being criticized for its harsh portrayal of barbed wire. Here's GameBite's Caitlin Torres with more.
Bethesda's The Evil Within is a nightmarish adventure that shows bloody and rusty barbed wire being used to hurt innocent people, which has angered the nation's barbed wire producers.
Barbed wire is a positive force for good. It protects our junkyards from scrap metal thieves and helps keep our cattle ranches safe from rustlers. But Bethesda, thinks it's okay to ignore all the benefits of barbed wire and make it look like some scary thing used by murderers.
The designers have promised that the game will feature prominent messages extolling the virtues of the sharp steel fencing. But barbed wire groups say that it's too little too late.
If Bethesda wants to make this right, they should have the main character go behind a fence and then be safe from monsters because they can't climb over the barbed wire to get him. Now that's a game I would play.
Let's hope Bethesda listens.
Thanks, Caitlin.
This is the Onion News Network.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. The former president's team are trying to portray Cohen as an untrustworthy ex-employee out for revenge. FSN Sally Patterson sent this report from outside the court in New York.
Donald Trump sat smirking as he watched his attorneys grill his former fixer. The defense is working hard to paint Michael Cohen as a vindictive ex-employee who can't be trusted. On Thursday, the court has played audio from last year where Cohen can be heard saying, "I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. I want this man to rot inside for what he did to my family." The former president is charged with 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records in relation to a hush money payment allegedly made ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. And speaking to reporters outside court, he once again called the trial a scam and a sham designed to keep him off the campaign trail. Sally Patterson, New York.
Meanwhile, US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies. He hosted a group of 20 oil executives and lobbyists last month and is expected to provide tax breaks to the industry if he becomes president again. FSN's Caroline Malone reports.
The deal in question involves Trump returning incentives for the oil and gas industry worth about $110 billion. President Joe Biden wants tax breaks on them eliminated, including $35 billion in domestic subsidies and $75 billion in foreign fossil fuel income. Trump hosted a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort last month featuring the who's who of the oil and gas industry. Congressional Democrats have launched an investigation into ethical campaign finance and legal issues. Some say this is a quid pro quo offer.
US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur over his handling of classified documents. Hur questioned the president's memory and mental agility in a damning report earlier this year. Biden has already hit back at Hur's characterization of him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The US military has finished building a large floating pier off the coast of Gaza. It's in an attempt to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance for Palestinians in the war-torn Gaza Strip. FSN's Benji Hire reports.
It's an enormous but desperately needed task, one that could help tackle hunger in the territory amid Israel's devastating campaign against Hamas. The United Nations warns of a full-blown famine. Children, it says, are starving to death. Once the US's system is up and running, close to 150 trucks of aid could be delivered per day, carrying 2 million meals, enough to feed almost all of the Gazan population.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking in more detail today at the latest news to buffet aviation giant Boeing. The US Department of Justice is threatening the company with criminal prosecution after finding that it has reneged on an agreement it struck with prosecutors after 2 fatal crashes of its 737 MAX jets in 2018 and 2019. 346 people died in the crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. A deferred prosecution agreement was signed by the US government with Boeing in 2021, but now investigators say Boeing has failed to adhere to its terms. Robert Clifford, a lawyer based in Chicago, is lead counsel representing some of the families of the dead.
My clients and I are very pleased with the decision by DOJ to go forward with a continued investigation of Boeing's conduct that led to the needless deaths of 346 people. The clients have been urging DOJ to be more transparent in how they evaluate Boeing's conduct. The government determining that there has been a breach of the agreement is critical to the arguments the families have been making for some time.
Boeing denies being out of compliance with its earlier agreement, says it will now cooperate with the Department of Justice. But there is no doubt a possible criminal prosecution has now inched closer. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies, and US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with special counsel Robert Hur. There's more from us on X at Feature Story. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
If you're just tuning in, a horrific accident. Dozens are dead and hundreds more injured after the Coors Light party train crashed in Pratt, Kansas. The train was barreling through a field on its way to liven up a boring, overheated barbecue when something went wrong. Partiers were thrown hundreds of feet from the train as the frost-powered locomotive careened through bystanders at its normal speed of over 27,000 miles per hour. Rescue crews are struggling to get close to the crash. The Rocky Mountain frost radiating from the downed silver bullet is flash freezing survivors' bodies as they try to escape the wreckage, and the OJ's hit song Love Train is looping at deafening levels. No word yet on the cause of the accident, but investigators are focusing now on the fact that the train weighs 400 million tons and was not on rails. Coors Light has released the following statement, quote, Coors Light regrets any loss of life caused by the Coors Light party train's raw, frosty power. Please continue to enjoy Coors Light. We'll have more on this story as it develops.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Talk Live, talk radio that you control, and that means 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call to bring up whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160, and Free Talk Live is brought to you by Fork Fest, happening June 13th through the 16th at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, so there is no ticket cost and no one is in charge. For more information and to connect with the other attendees, you can visit the unofficial website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay.
And Mushmouth Mike.
And let's just go to the phones, you guys' calls and thoughts. Unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hello?
Hi.
Hi, my name is Gasali. And what's on my mind is how the senators of our state, the state of New Hampshire, pulled the okey doke on us after a bill that we presented to the House about on the 13th Amendment regarding the exception clause that's in the 13th Amendment.
Okay, yeah. So I saw that there was they they put in a bill, at least the House did, and I think it passed, that would basically say, even though in the 13th Amendment they leave an exception for prisons for slavery, New Hampshire was going to reject that. So what happened?
Yeah, so the first committee that heard it, they passed it unanimously 20-0. Commissioner Helen Hanks even wrote a letter, saying that she wasn't against it or whatever. And then it went to the House, like you said, and was 366 to 5. And at that time, even at the House, they presented their amendment. They were trying to amend our bill by adding the exception clause to have it mirror the federal Constitution. And so that one didn't go through on the House floor. It was 366 to 5. And then it was heard in front of the Senate Executive and Administrative Committee. And we attended that hearing and spoke at it, and then they brought it back at a later time, which they did not post. I guess the last hearing, they don't post the dates. So we're just supposed to either keep calling and find out when they're going to have it, or, I don't know, guess, I guess.
So I'll tell you real quick how to figure out these dates. I just, because there's been some DCYF special committee hearings I've been paying attention to. And if you go to, it's like, Gen Court, and there's like a calendar. And so gencourt.state.nh.us/house. I can't read it all for some reason. So House calendar, I think it is. And then you click on that page, and so it's basically like a PDF that shows up, and then you have to look through the specific days, and it's not like you can just internet search this committee, right? And it's really stupid, and they don't want you got to click like 30 times to get there. They don't want people to know these things.
Yeah, it's always.
But I believe that this specific hearing that we're referring to, the one after the one that we spoke at, that they heard us when they brought it back, that specific hearing, it is public. We know that it's public, but they don't post that specific hearing. The one right before it goes to the senators, to all 24 senators, they don't post the date for that one. So we're supposed to call the committee and ask them, when they're planning on putting it on the schedule and whatever.
So it's in the Senate now.
Last hearing. Yeah.
So what happened at the hearing?
So they had that last hearing that we weren't aware of the date, and between Senator Chair Pearl, and Senator Carson, they said that he brought his amendment again. They brought forth their own amendment. He created an amendment, which was, again, with the exception clause, that it is abolished except for unless you're convicted of a crime. So that's their amendment, and it was voted. Obviously, one of the other people spoke up against it. They said that nullifies the whole point of this bill, and that New Hampshire that doesn't mirror New Hampshire values. And nonetheless, what they said was that if the people who sponsored the bill wanted to come forward with a prison reform bill, that they'd be happy to entertain it. But he wasn't comfortable with passing a constitutional amendment, a prison reform bill under the guise of a constitutional amendment.
Wow.
You said that was mainly, was that the senator? The senator had these opinions? What's the senator, though, right?
What's his name?
Yes. Senator Pearl. He was the chair. He's the chairperson. He's the one that created the amendment and brought the amendment forward. It's Amendment 1721S that is the name of that. Is the number of that one. And then Senator Carson added on and said that she had spoken to many of the representatives that had voted that day on the House, and that they voted for it because they were afraid that they were going to be the people were going to think that they support slavery if they didn't. That's what they would have been. They would have been supporting the slavery, the exception clause, the exception to slavery in the original 13th Amendment. So the things that they say, they're sitting here saying, they really don't hear themselves because they contradict the very thing that they're saying. It's crazy to me.
These the lawyers involved in all this stuff really are there. So there's these lawyers that work for the state. Like there's one guy, his name's Brown, Andrew Brown, I think. And he works for Merrimack County Prosecutor's Office, and he is always basically testifying at committee hearings
Oh, yeah.
And in testifying to basically make sure the state has more power and authority over you at all times. And the way I look at it is anything the legislature says doesn't apply to the people. So these statutes are only for government and government contractors. The problem is everybody is functioning through these governmental entities, names and date of birth. They're not doing this. They're doing this most likely unknowingly. So anything that the statutes are only for government contractors, not for the people. In fact, they're
definitely going to treat it like it has to do with you. They're going to throw you in a jail cell if you're breaking the law.
Yeah, if you're signing documents claiming to be a federal United States citizen,
even if you're
doing
not,
stuff
and you're
like that,
doing something that is written down on a piece of paper says it's wrong, you're going to get put in a cage if they catch you doing it.
I can say I'm living proof of that. I haven't stepped in these jurisdictional traps. I've been very good about getting out of them. Been very good about questioning them, and I haven't been put in jail. I've spent a few hours here and there for things, but the bottom line is they have. There's a presumption that you are property of the federal government because you claim to be a United States citizen.
I can't say that you're living proof. Like that doesn't your life living on like a farm raising your kids isn't the same thing as like Ian Freeman.
Right. No, it's not. But I also didn't open up any bank accounts and check off the word, United States citizen. And
I know,
sign
but
these things.
you're working in circles now. It's like I didn't sign these things, but also you're not in jail, but also you didn't do like some kind of activism where they really want to take you down. So like my point is like if they want to take you down, they're going to. They're not going to be like, I see this here.
They definitely have to have some form of jurisdiction. But the bottom line is the statutes are for, and it's actually explained in the New Hampshire statutory construction, Maine statutory construction. It says that persons are required to follow the statute. People are invited to the statutes. So it's
even
an
if it
invitation.
says that, it doesn't matter. That's not an invitation because people still get pulled over for their. Like for example, my grandpa was like just didn't have a license and got pulled over for not having a license. He didn't fall in a jurisdictional trap if he didn't fill out any paperwork to get the license.
Well, possibly. I mean, if he was like, it was all different scenarios, but the legislature, people got to understand that they're not subject to the legislature, but people believe that they're subject to the legislature. They believe that they're federal United States citizens and stuff. Like Christopher Gronsky, DestinationFreedoms.org. He really gets into this stuff. You can follow his things. There's this other website, onestupidf.com, and F is the F word. Spell it out. Brandon Joey Williams, he gets into this. He does a contract killer course, which really explains how you've subjected yourself to these draconian laws and the legislature and things. But so I just want to put that out there.
I believe that too. I've recently come to learn a lot of things in this past year, and that's one of them is the legislature, specifically with DCYF. But with this bill, so the other thing that they did was after Senator Carson was concerned about equating people that are being forced to work equating to slavery, they were supposed to have the hearing today, and they actually went ahead and had the hearing yesterday. After it was posted for tomorrow, and they had it yesterday instead. And then went ahead and passed the amendment, so they have passed it with the exception, and now it goes back to the House, I guess, is what they said.
And these are like all the kinds of little games they play. It doesn't matter what's written down as these are the rules. They'll just break the rules anytime it's convenient for them to do whatever they want to gain more control over your life or push things forward.
Right. And that's the thing that I have the biggest problem with is that the consensus is clear. We're like the first committee passed it 20-0, and then the House passed it 356-5, and then you're gonna two or three of y'all are gonna go and turn around the decision that's already been made by the majority of the people.
And you'll notice it's always lawyers doing this. It's always lawyers manipulating and changing this legislation, and it's always to keep their pension funds nice and fat, to keep them in power, to keep the state in power. And who uses
the political power to maintain slavery? Who does that?
Evil people.
Governments.
They do it with money now. They don't have to do it with chains anymore. They found that that if they manipulate the money that the slaves are using, they can get a lot more of their power, of their resources. If you look back in the day, like when the pine tree riots, I don't know what percentage of tax income that was going to be in New Hampshire. It was into single digits.
Right.
And they
It was just on one industry, right?
they violently uprose against them. Right.
Yeah, it was on lumber.
And now what are we at? Like at least 50%?
Oh, like your entire income on anything.
Yeah.
Everything.
But
Well, it's you're
gotta fix the money.
The average working guy in the United States of America pays more in taxes than they pay in food, shelter, and clothing. So that goes to show you right there.
What was your name again, caller? Are you still with us?
My name is Giselli. Giselli Glenn.
Giselli.
Well, thank you for your efforts in, taking up your time to go down and get involved in this, because it's such draining, horrible, nauseating work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and discouraging. Really discouraging a lot of the times.
Well, I'm definitely of the belief that New Hampshire is, it's a great place to be, not just for bug out, but in life. I mean, there is good things happening here.
Oh yeah. And I believe in the good things coming.
Article 10 a lot. I've been reading Article 10 of the New Hampshire. We have already
the right to revolution.
Absolutely.
I know of a kid that went to court for allegedly evading police on a motorcycle went to court on his own, stood before a judge, argued with the prosecutor, and got it dismissed. So, this was a 17-year-old kid at the time that did this. So my point to tell that story is I don't know of many other places in the United States that sort of thing is happening, where a judge is patient enough to not just throw him under the bus or... I
think it's less about them being patient and more about they have so many eyes on them in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
And that's why court activism is like my number one favorite type of activism. It's like, sometimes I think would the judge have ruled... Oh, what was that?
What kind of activism did you say?
Court activism, like specifically filming in courts or just going there and giving people things that say don't take the plea deal.
And support.
I love that. I love that.
One of the things that, when my wife was going to court, the court was standing room only.
Yeah.
A lot of, so many people showed up. If you're affiliated with the Free Staters, you are a Free Stater or the Shire Society, or you're just part of the overall freedom movement and you ask for help, you just post in these groups on Signal or Telegram or Matrix or whatever that you got a court date this day. A bunch of people show up to support you. People take the day off of work or they go into work late. They show up with their kids, whatever. State representatives show up. All kinds of people show up.
And if you want to connect with anybody as part of that community, you could go to freestateproject.com, I think it is, or freestateproject.org. If you just Google the Free State Project,
there's also Shire Society.com.
But the Free State Project will link to the calendar, I think. But
maybe
I'm pretty sure.
And there'll also be links to Telegram channels. And then you'll get in these Telegram chats. And then if you have Signal, there's all kinds of Signal chats.
And you'll find some Free Staters agree with you on most things, and some have totally different opinions, but all of them agree that they want to leave each other, including you, alone and let you live your own lives. And one thing I find weird about what the senator said is I do think that it is New Hampshire culture to not believe in slavery. So a little weird that he doesn't think that.
Well, I mentioned...
Live free or die. Live free or die came from that. You rather die than... If you're not living free, then you rather die than be enslaved.
Right. Slavery is definitely one of the things that are worse evil than death.
And it's not even and it's not all about... It's not even about forced labor. They keep trying to make it about the labor and prison policy. That's not what it's about. It's about racial justice. It's about the degradation of humanity and the erosion of human dignity. That's what it's about. It's about making compassion and conscious and a moral obligation to right the wrongs that were made in history, we as Americans.
That is definitely something that I noticed in visiting my husband in the Merrimack County Jail and then in the prison he's in right now, is that their whole thing is putting these prisoners down, they've told him you obviously don't have a brain if you're in here, when he's a genius, and just ridiculous things. It's all about dehumanizing people in that system. So
and they try to dress it up and make it look pretty, like it's rehabilitating, and no, it isn't. No, it isn't.
They
Not
have
even a little bit.
the word respect on the wall everywhere. It's like, you don't respect us at all, even like the visitors.
No, I think New Hampshire,
not even the visitors.
at least one spot I can think of in Westmoreland, New Hampshire, they used to have on their, I don't know, county jail or whatever, they had a work crew. Like they did farm stuff. They went out and they did things around town. I mean, it was, there was some rehab and they were actually learning some skills and, probably actually leaving that system as...
Did that close or something?
It did. They had some corruption issues, but the point being is to refer back to the way that the caller mentioned that they should be, if you're going to go in these places, there should be some kind of rehab, specifically for like, I don't know, learn how to grow your own food.
Yeah, like education would be better than what they have now.
You think they would do that?
They're counting on the recidivism. They're counting
I think so too.
Yeah, it's because it's all been corporatized.
They're not trying to, right.
Yeah, and like a lot of these...
Because they need those license plates. They pay $1.20 cost for those license plates, and then they turn around and sell them to us for how much?
A lot.
All of the paper products that are in the school districts, that they get in the courts, that they have, even their business cards, are printed at the prison. They pay how much for that? How much do they pay the inmates? Maybe $3 a day max?
I'm sure the taxpayer bill on that's pretty high, too.
Yeah, they are.
Like people being in every day. I don't know what it comes out to, but I'm sure they have a nice profit model working out.
Pay to the officers.
The only people that win is the CEOs of these like private prisons, and then the state if it's not a private prison.
And all the vendors and contractors that support the prisons, they're all just getting money hand over fist. And even I don't know about New Hampshire, but I know in Colorado there was this huge prison that they built. It was in the same town I was working in, and the prison didn't have enough inmates, and to build the prison, they had a contract with the state that they would have something like X amount of, the prison had to be at like 84% capacity was the deal. And they got paid like $130,000 per prisoner per year. Plus they got all this other money for all kinds of other stuff. And
you're exactly right.
And the prison was owned by, I believe, a company called Whackin' Hut, and they sued the state of Colorado because they were only at like 35% capacity, and they're like, well, you need to put more people in this prison. And so basically they got paid for having like, I don't know, 3,000 inmates when there was like 250. I don't know the numbers, but it was like, they got a certain amount. And yeah, it's just all ridiculous prison industrial complex. And then when people are going through the court system, going through the prison, there's these like, sort of like stock exchange, like in the UK, where they create these bonds and they make all kinds of money, and the judges make money, the prosecutors make money. Like everybody just gets, a filthy fat rich, and it's a massive major scam that very few people are aware of. And
That's exactly what they do with the DCYF. That's exactly what DCYF does with all the million incentives that they have for taking people's children.
Yep, and DCYF gets all kind. The judges, a judicial pension fund at a Title 4D, gets money every time, based on the performance of DCYF and family court to do things such as collect child support, to conduct assessments on families, to bring contempt orders against families, to take children, to place the children in foster care, and they have a quota system. There was a meeting, an ad hoc committee meeting of the legislature, where we basically, a bunch of us, I think 160 notices Leah Cushman got, to have Leah Cushman, J.R. Hull, Kelly Potenza, a handful of other state representatives put together this ad hoc committee that was asked by a whole bunch of the people to investigate, sort of what, DCYF is doing, because Leah Cushman had and others had been ordered by the people to create a special committee to investigate DCYF, and because Leah had requested that people testify under oath, the Sherman Packard, who is an establishment shill that is bought and paid for by the pedophile elite, best I can tell, the Speaker of the House removed Leah Cushman from this committee, because basically it's a maximum of law that, your words mean nothing unless they're under oath. So you have all these people come and testify about this stuff, but nobody testifies under oath. It doesn't matter. So there's
they lie anyways under oath. That was my main issue with the DCYF court right now. Their whole case is a lie. Like, they She signed off on that ex parte, like, didn't even uphold anything. Like, it's
so
crazy.
So that in this, with this Title IV money out of DCYF, if you do ad hoc committee, special committee, I believe, New Hampshire House of Representatives.
The first one. I saw the first one that they had at the State House, and then when she assigned the committee, Pat Long and someone else, and the ones that are on the committee.
This is an ad hoc committee that was 2 weeks ago. There's only been one of them so far. And
no, I'm talking like when Leah Cushman first started, the first hearing that she had.
Yep. So anyways, what they found is there's a quota system that they must have 20% of these particular divorce cases, for example, must be these real difficult divorce cases, at least 20% of them that take a lot of time to figure out so they can get federal money.
Why wouldn't it just be whatever it is what it is, and you just deal with?
Because it incentivizes bad behavior, and it incentivizes, this gross abuse of this powerful structure that they call, Child Protective Services Industrial Complex.
Well, thank you so much for the call. Caller, you sound really informed. Please call back sometime when you have more information like that. 603-283-6160.
Did you know that New Hampshire has a legal right to leave the Union? It's simple. Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution lists everything that states are forbidden from doing. Guess what's not on that list? Withdrawing from the Union. Therefore, under the 10th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, the decision to leave is reserved to the states. The New Hampshire Constitution's Articles 7 and 10 say the people have the exclusive right to govern themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state, and that it's our right to establish a new government. New Hampshire can absolutely 100% choose to leave the Union, but it's a choice for the people of New Hampshire alone. No-fault unilateral divorce is the standard in every developed nation on the planet. When one partner wants to leave their abuser, they do not need bilateral consent. Who would argue that abuse victims can't leave their spouse without permission? You can learn more about how we can peacefully divorce DC at nhindependence.org and join the movement at nhexit.us.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. Donald Trump's lawyers are continuing their cross-examination of Michael Cohen, the man who said he made hush money payments on Trump's behalf. The former president's team are trying to portray Cohen as an untrustworthy ex-employee out for revenge. Ever since Sally Patterson sent this report from outside the court in New York.
Donald Trump sat smirking as he watched his attorneys grill his former fixer. The defense is working hard to paint Michael Cohen as a vindictive ex-employee who can't be trusted. On Thursday, the court was played audio from last year, where Cohen can be heard saying, "I truly hope that this man ends up in prison. I want this man to rot inside for what he did to my family." The former president is charged with 34 criminal counts of falsifying business records in relation to a hush money payment allegedly made ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Trump pleaded not guilty to all charges. And speaking to reporters outside court, he once again called the trial a scam and a sham designed to keep him off the campaign trail. Sally Patterson, New York.
Meanwhile, US House Democrats are looking into Donald Trump's request for $1 billion in campaign funds from major energy companies. He hosted a group of 20 oil executives and lobbyists last month and is expected to provide tax breaks to the industry if he becomes president again. Ever since Caroline Malone reports.
The deal in question involves Trump returning incentives for the oil and gas industry, worth about $110 billion. President Joe Biden wants tax breaks on them eliminated, including $35 billion in domestic subsidies and $75 billion in foreign fossil fuel income. Trump hosted a dinner at his Mar-a-Lago resort last month featuring the who's who of the oil and gas industry. Congressional Democrats have launched an investigation into ethical campaign finance and legal issues. Some say this is a quid pro quo offer.
US President Joe Biden has blocked the release of audio recordings of his interviews with Special Counsel Robert Hur over his handling of classified documents. Hur questioned the president's memory and mental agility in a damning report earlier this year. Biden has already hit back at Hur's characterization of him as a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. The US military has finished building a large floating pier off the coast of Gaza. It's in an attempt to facilitate the delivery of humanitarian assistance for Palestinians in the war-torn Gaza Strip. Ever since Benji Hire reports.
It's an enormous but desperately needed task, one that could help tackle hunger in the territory amid Israel's devastating campaign against Hamas. The United Nations warns of a full-blown famine. Children, it says, are starving to death. Once the US's system is up and running, close to 150 trucks of aid could be delivered per day, carrying 2 million meals, enough to feed almost all of the Gazan population.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can call in with whatever is on your mind. And with you in the studio tonight you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay. And Mushmouth Mike.
And we have Sarah from New Mexico on the line. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, yes. I just want to say that it turns out that 25% of our New Mexico drivers are uninsured. So, are you surprised, Bonnie?
No, I'm not. I actually just listened to, if anybody wants to understand what's up with car insurance, PBD, Patrick Bet David, Valuetainment Podcast. He is made lots of money in the insurance industry. That is a pretty good podcast. And anyways, he explains why a lot of people's insurance is skyrocketing. So one interesting thing, he said Louisiana had the highest amount of uninsured motor vehicles. And I believe he said 13%. Louisiana. And you just said Albuquerque, 25% of drivers. But I wonder if that's 25 equals 25% of motor vehicles, because you actually, in most of the time, you insure the car, and then the driver or the owner of the car is insured also, but there is more cars insured generally than drivers are insured. So there's a lot of people who are drivers that don't own a car that and their name isn't on any insurance. So he was talking about that there's a Kia car that's really easy to steal, and there was a YouTube
Kia Boys.
The Kia Boys YouTube videos. Okay, I haven't seen him. I just heard him talk about it. But basically,
and Hyundais.
And so these Kias and Hyundais, a whole bunch of insurance companies won't even insure these cars.
Why?
So you can't, because they're so easy to steal. There's you can't get theft insurance on them. And then they were talking about how California, Louisiana, I believe New Mexico was on the list as top states with the most amount of uninsured cars, motor vehicles. And like New Hampshire, you don't have to have insurance. It's not even a rule in New Hampshire to have auto insurance unless you're like a habitual offender of some sort. And then they call that like an SR22 things. I know some guys that do that, and it's pretty expensive.
Or if you have a lien against it, you have to have one most of the time.
Well, yeah. So if you have to have, if you have like a note on a car. So,
but that's the bank requiring it, not the state.
In New Hampshire was for the most amount of percentage of cars insured, New Hampshire was like number 3 on the list that he was going through. So New Hampshire's like third highest in the state for most amount of cars actually insured, and it's not, you don't even need insurance. Now I can tell you the insurance on my cars hasn't gone up, but I have friends in Massachusetts that are like got good driving records, and they have like newer cars that have payments on them, so they have to have full coverage, and they don't even have these like high, priority theft cars. And their insurance some of these guys telling me their insurance has doubled and almost tripled in the last 5 years. But go on, Sarah.
Okay, my question is, I'm trying to understand the logic that all these uninsurance drivers are supposed to drive up the insurance rate of the good drivers, people that are paying insurance.
That's possible.
I'm trying to understand the logic behind it.
I'll tell you the logic behind it. So here in New Hampshire, to buy a basic automotive insurance policy, they include uninsured motor vehicle or uninsured motorist. So For example, if I get hit by somebody with no insurance, my insurance company just pays me. Now, if you have a Massachusetts policy, that does not automatically come with your Massachusetts policy. You have to buy that as an extra. Because I used to have Massachusetts insurance, and I have twice now gotten hit by uninsured motor vehicles. Not in New Hampshire. Actually, it was in New York and Massachusetts. And I got paid because I had uninsured, motorists.
Yeah,
or
that
whatever.
happened to me once in Texas. I was like, what? So they don't have insurance, so I'm just like screwed? And then a few months later, I just got like $600 or something. I was like, whoa.
So that's where that comes from. So in states where there is
It was just a fender bender. I didn't fix or anything.
So in states where there's a high amount of uninsured motor vehicles getting in accidents, you're gonna have the uninsured motorists. Now, I don't know about New Mexico, but I'm gonna assume. Now, I know in Arizona, your basic insurance covers uninsured motorists because this happened to my mom not too long ago, or my sister, I guess, one of them. They got in a fender bender by some foreign fella that didn't have insurance, and I'll bet you that's going to be most of the people not having insurance is poor people or people that are undocumented, type
the girl
folks.
who hit me was just some white girl from the same high school as me who was just a dumb driver and didn't have insurance on her Jeep. My age. Oh, I paused Sarah because I don't think there's anything really else interesting about that call, but we have an unscreened caller on Free Talk Live. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
It's your boy.
It's
the evolutionary British daddy capitalist using up all your prolapses.
It's Skeeter.
Hey, I think I figured out the solution to the Bitcoin energy problem. Let's just attach a turbine next to Jay's mouth. Damn, Jay.
You could run up some megawatts with that.
Ranting power.
Hey, whatever I can do to help.
Well, what about you, Turd? Or not Turd, Skeeter, you talk
hey, Bonnie,
also fast
hey,
and
Bonnie.
stupidly. What?
Hey, Bonnie, I like your blouse.
Okay, good night. Have a good night.
Later, Skeeter.
David in New Mexico.
Hey,
You're
those
on...
are fun, though.
No, he's not. David, you're on Free
Hey,
Talk
Bonnie.
Live.
It's your baby daddy.
Oh, that
I like your
scared
blouse,
me.
too.
I thought it was him still. I thought it was Skeeter again.
Sounded a little like it.
Yeah, that was pretty good. He always says
All
baby
right.
daddy when he means it's your boy. Not
Boy,
your baby
boy,
daddy.
Your boy daddy. Your daddy boy. Your baby boy.
What?
Yeah. Huh?
It just doesn't work like that.
What do you mean it doesn't work? It works any way that we want. This is pretend land on the radio.
What's on your mind, actually, David? Lots of
Well,
stuff.
you know the
It's
answer
crazy.
to that already. Why are you asking? You a lawyer or something, Bonnie? You asking? Lawyers only ask questions they already know the answer to. You know that, Bonnie? And you already know the answer to that. Are you a lawyer? A lawyer?
He said you know what's on his mind, Bonnie. Tell us.
Lots of stuff. It's crazy.
Give us something
lots of
crazy
stuff.
he's thinking about.
It's crazy. It's
Since he knows you
ridiculous.
so well.
Crazy.
That's what he always says. He always says that.
Yeah.
Is it squirrel stories?
No. I want to talk about horses again because you always let Jay talk about horses, and you actually don't even know the real reason that you matter of fact, you criticized me. You said I wanted to talk about horses, and you said why don't you talk about something like or we're talking about stuff like freedom and stuff like that, and you had no idea because you didn't let me talk about horses. You had no idea that my whole horse questions was about freedom, and you didn't even know that because you didn't let me finish.
I don't even remember this
You
scenario.
got the floor now. Let's hear it.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. Well, first of all, here's some things that you might like to use. In your shire there in New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
Does the king of the shire or whatever he or she is called go on TV or radio and do shire side chat?
Not that I've
There's
seen.
no king.
Would you be referring to like Sununu? Or some self?
Yeah, no, I'd be referring to like FDR. Never mind. You're too young. We'll move on to the next one. Here's a
Ian
good
Freeman did
name.
the radio show.
What?
He's not the king. Though.
I'm just kidding.
He's your leader.
Yeah, he would say, "Oh my
Well,
goodness."
Ari did the radio show, and Ari was the queen.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. So when you talk about your crooked politicians in New Hampshire, you should refer to New Hampshire as New Scamshire.
Well, they're all scams.
They
all
could
the
be
states are
applicable.
scams. They all got all the same crooked things going on, especially with Child Protective Services.
Yeah, it's not unique to New Hampshire, so I don't know if that'd be really helpful because
Corruption is federally subsidized. That's the bottom line.
Right. Okay. And here's another word too that works that you can use with Shire. We're talking about scam Shire and politicians. The old term that's not used anymore, calling someone a scamp.
I've heard scamp.
Yeah, so you can look that up and then use it appropriately, and you can call these people whatever from or refer to the state as New Scampshire. And
a person who is mischievous in a likable or amusing way. That's how you guys feel about Skeeter, but not me.
There you go. Okay. Well, and then when these scamsters in New Scampshire, these politicians, when they finally cross the line and you hang them, then you can call it Noose Hampshire.
Well, hopefully we don't have to do that, but I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean the guillotines were effective.
It'd be more fun if you hopefully got to do that.
I don't know if I wouldn't find that fun. I am always wondering, like, why did people gather to go watch public hanging? That's terrifying.
Why do you think they call it a necktie party? Why do you think they call it a necktie party?
I don't even know what that is. Never heard that term in my life.
Yeah, once again, you're too young. Hey, that would be a good political party, a good name for a political party, the necktie party, for those that are fed up and want to hang the current politicians.
I feel the need to urgently want to change things, and sometimes think, okay, let's do the necktie party, or let's bring the guillotine back. But I feel like when you change things with violence, you just get one guillotine. Yes, thank you.
Right.
That you just end up getting, some different grade of jerk.
That's what Dave Ridley said to nobody. He said, "Violence begets more violence."
Yeah, live by the sword, die by the sword. There's nothing new under the sun. It's all been said before.
Yeah, this is why we just need to raise Generation Next to be confident and competent, so they don't vote for more government. They don't need government.
Right.
Make
but
government irrelevant.
There's a couple more that apply. There's the one about the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rule. And then there's the other one about might makes right. And then there's the one that they got backwards. They actually got it backwards. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but it's actually the other way around. The sword is mightier than the pen.
I can see all those. You mentioned the one about gold. That's we were talking about money. So again, we talk about I'm talking about if you fix the money, you want all these problems to go away. It's got to start at the money.
Yeah. So there you go. If you have the gold, meaning the real gold, and you have a better money than they got, then you will make the rules, because they will fail and you will rule. And when you rule, then you make the rule.
Yeah, I think we would. So first off, I believe in a good things coming. I really feel we're going to see a day, hopefully soon, where the U.S. dollar fiat becomes irrelevant to the world. I think what's going to happen to the U.S., and this is got to be part of the correction that we need to go through. And if you're prepared for it, you'll be all right. And if you're not prepared for it, you'll probably be in a gulag or dead, or you're probably in a city. You're screwed. But the U.S. is going to have a Soviet-style correction to where, like back when the ruble, went to nothing, and Soviet Union, went into basically cannibalism, chaos type thing.
Ruble.
The U.S. Is going to face a similar fate, I believe, and I'm cheering it on. We need this correction.
Yeah, and Mushmouth Mike. Did I hear you out of the corner of my ear? Did you thank that previous lady caller for her attending the legislature and all that hard work?
Yeah, I can't.
Okay,
I detest those things.
Are you going to thank me for the 6 years, every year in a row, without a miss, alternating 30-day, 60-day legislative sessions where I attended and got in the face of people, not just sat there all day long, every day, up to 14-hour days, while I slept either in the back of my pickup truck or up on the mountain at 10,000 feet in 4 feet of snow and 30 below zero temperature in a tent?
Of course. Thank you very much for your service.
Well, he did it in New Mexico, so no one cares. Communist New Mexico. Just kidding, David. I'm joking.
Yeah,
I'm
you
joking.
come here and do it. If you really got all the energy, come do more of it here.
No. I used up all the energy, dude. I had the energy.
I get it.
I used it all up. It's all gone. Bye-bye.
Now he's 95 years old.
He sounds like he's pretty good for 95.
Bonnie, 195, Bonnie, get it right.
You want to wrangle horses at 195 years old, huh?
Yeah, this baby daddy robs cradles, I'll tell you.
David Methuselah.
Yeah. And now for freedom horses. How about that, Bonnie?
Okay.
Mustangs.
Okay. So here's what Bonnie didn't know when she didn't want to talk about horses. Here's what Bonnie didn't know. The reason I ask questions about that bores Bonnie or whatever about breeding horses, et cetera, is because I have the ability. Actually, if I stand up and turn around and look out there, I can literally get on a horse right at my gate, and I can go anywhere in the western U.S. without even being on a road, Bonnie. No driver's license, no insurance. You were talking about insurance just a minute ago. No insurance, no nothing. Don't even have to stay on the road. No traffic. No cops coming up and down the road that I got to watch to see if they're behind me.
Heavily
Like
underrated benefit of the West that New Hampshire lovers just are missing out on. I love that idea. I love the big open spaces. I love, there's nobody for 50 miles in a radius around me. That's awesome.
I can tell you the Revolutionary War could not have been won if it was fought in the desert.
With mountains?
It was won because of this mountainous region.
There's way more mountains in Utah and New Mexico.
But but there isn't heavy forests.
There wasn't heavy forest back then.
Here?
Yeah,
there was pretty heavy forest here 250 years ago. 120 years ago there wasn't because it was but there was heavy forest in New England, in northern New England. But Massachusetts was 80% clear 120 years ago, but 250 years ago it wasn't 80% clear. Now Massachusetts is 20% cleared land. 80%
I still don't
forest.
think you can hide behind trees easier than you can hide in a mountain. There are trees on the mountains too. There aren't trees necessarily in a sandy desert, but there are tons of different types of trees.
How did we go from horses equaling freedom to
because it's this thing that New
either-
Hampshire lovers love to say. They're like, you couldn't be free in the desert because if somebody's going to shoot directly at you from miles away
It's
because
pretty
they
easy
can
to
see
get
you.
ambushed in the desert
It's
wiped out.
Not a desert
By a
that's
big army.
flat.
Wait a minute. The West is not one big entire kitty box.
That's what I'm exactly saying.
Yeah.
There's tons of different types of deserts. There's 5 different types of deserts just in Utah. And the one I lived in has tons of shrubs, trees in the
Utah
mountains.
does have a lot of forests. Eastern Colorado doesn't.
So does New Mexico,
So does New
Colorado. Arizona has a lot of forest. Arizona may have more forest than New Hampshire. It probably has more forest than New Hampshire.
It probably does. It's much bigger than New Hampshire.
That's right. California has all kinds of forest.
But for
Every state of the West.
disregarding, like David was saying, disregarding war, it's just an underrated feeling of freedom. When I learned to drive, I learned the mechanism of driving in Texas, but I really started learning to drive and driving on my own in Utah. It was there's just no better feeling than there's no one around me. There's not a cop around because cops aren't in this area. And I can drive as fast as I want. And look, there's an eagle flying with me. It's just such a great, underrated feeling. And if I could ride a horse, never really thought about that.
Take that feeling, Bonnie,
I bet.
and multiply it times 100. If you're on your horse and you don't even have to look at which road you want to drive down. You can just pick a direction that you want to go, and you just point the horse that direction, and you go. You can go anywhere you want.
Sounds awesome.
Like the original self-driving vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're self-driving.
Yeah, you can. It's better than a Tesla. The horses don't crash if you fall asleep on your horse. The horse is not going to crash. It'll just keep on walking. Whatever direction, wherever it thinks
that horse is going to walk back home. I know a few guys that would ride their horse to the bar when I was a kid, and they would be like, "Yep, I woke up on my horse, and he was in his stall."
How hard is it to sleep on a horse?
You can
Easy?
do it. Yeah,
Nice.
sure.
Yeah, just watch those old Trinity movies. Actually, you just make yourself a traverse and hook it to your saddle and take a nap laying on the traverse behind the horse.
Well, I used to watch wild Mustangs, or not watch, but drive out to look at wild Mustangs in Utah too, and that is just such a pretty sight. Apparently, Trump was catching and killing a bunch of them, and that kind of made me sad.
That's actually a really good thing to do is cull those wild Mustangs, because what happens is when you don't cull them, they just tear up all the grasslands, and horses tear up grasslands. Cattle don't, because horses have top and bottom teeth, Cows just have bottom teeth. They don't have top teeth. And therefore, when the horses eat the grass, they rip the roots out. Cows don't rip the roots out.
There's
Horses
also
are
wild
really
cows there.
Tough
It's crazy.
really tough on the land. And when I forget what year it was, but there was like a massive pushback. It was during the Clinton years against basically rounding up like 25% of these BLM horses and just sending them to a packing plant to turn them into hamburger. What started happening is first off, horses got extremely valuable because they couldn't round them up anymore. So people were stealing horses and bring them to auction because they were worth a lot of money just to send to the killer plant. And very quickly, a lot of these ranges got wiped out of the grasslands, got pretty barren.
In what state?
This was Utah, Nevada, I think Arizona, because they kind of banned rounding up these horses for slaughter. And then what happened? The federal government's out there killing these horses because the real mangy ones, the BLM's out there, they're just taking horses out. They're trying to do adoption things to get people to adopt them, the big Mustang adoption things. But what was happening is a lot of these horses got really sick and in really bad shape because there was too many of them. It's just like with the deer hunting. If we didn't hunt these deer, they basically start eating the forests pretty clean. And they
at least your backyard clean.
Oh yeah, you'll wipe out a lot of things, and then the deer population get really sick. But if you go out and hunt deer and you manage, the population of the deer, you have less deer, but you have a whole bunch of healthy deer.
I heard recently that the way that the buffalo were getting killed by the natives was like a more natural, good way to do it because they were killing like this specific one, like maybe it was the oldest one or the whatever, and it was a way that culled it but kept their population high and healthy and stuff like that, and also kept them from being overly aggressive. And then
the peyote that kept them high.
Huh?
Peyote.
That was the peyote that kept them high.
High buffalo, that's kind of scary. But it also kept them less aggressive because they were killing off the more aggressive ones, or killing off the one that would make them get into an aggressive pack. And then I don't know if it's just white people, but allegedly white people came and just started killing all of them. And then
it was specifically the cavalry in the U.S. government that because they wanted to eradicate the natives, that they killed off their food supplies. So there's these pictures, black and white photos of buffalo or bison skulls that were like massive piles, like huge, like the sizes of like huge factories.
Yep.
Because the military, the cavalry just went on a massive buffalo killing spree to wipe out the food of the natives.
So is that all you have to say about horses, David?
Yeah, so that was the whole point of that you missed, was that the reason I was asking that is because I wanted to get 2, 3, 4, half a dozen horses and just go to my gate right there and then go that way like 1,000 miles and then go over that way 1,000 miles and then come back that way 1,000 miles and then by a year later I'd stop by and see if I had any mail, and then I'd go 1,000 miles that way and I wouldn't have to ever be on a road, Bonnie.
So, hey, David, one thing that my mom did in 1986, she rode with a crew of guys that she worked with, and they were a bunch of ranchers and stuff. And my mom was really in the horse business, but they actually did a hike, a trail ride up the Rocky Mountains from Albuquerque, New Mexico, basically up to Denver-ish, Colorado. I think they spent 3 months doing it. But it was pretty wild. You told
that was one of my intended routes, was to go straight north from central New Mexico up into just keep going north through Colorado. There'd be all kinds of great places to go through in Colorado, and then then when you get to the end of that mountain range in Colorado, you have to go out on the plains for a while, and then up into one of the Wyoming mountain ranges and for a couple 100 miles, and then down across the flats again for 100 miles, and then up into the next mountain range, and just hop mountain range to mountain range to mountain range.
Well, it sounds like a nice, like, freeing feeling and idea. Not sure that's, like, really something like our listeners are going to go and, you know, take up or anything like that. I'm certainly not going to go take it up. But it was a good show tonight talking about what happened to the money, and you should get into cryptocurrencies and other hard money like gold and silver. And don't go buy the little certificates that just say you have them when you don't. It's been Free Talk Live. Thanks for listening. You can go to freetalklive.com. Peace.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money